you know what, guys? I want to extend a special invitation to you two guys because, I know you guys come to Illinois. You got property here.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll show up at my farm, I will take you on a tour on my side by side. I'll show you exactly what this place looks like, and I will buy your lunch.
All right.
You basically told me in the text message, not during the season.
Not during hunting.
100%.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let you on our farm. Yeah, we understand each other. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt.
Should be no surprise to anyone listening to this that back with Hoyt another season. I'm actually going to be shooting the AX2 aluminum this year.
You traitor.
But you're still going RX9.
Yeah, blacked out as always.
Blacked out. Yeah. Big surprise for
80
everyone.
pounds. Big surprise. Yeah.
But seriously, man, I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Every year, it seems like we get a new Hoyt bow in our hands, and they're always a step above the last and just a step above everybody else.
Yeah, they're so consistent, man. Just their processes get better, every year. And we've really been excited about, as we've grown with Hoyt, we've brought some others in with us. And we just feel like the Hoyt family is growing, like the community, and we're really excited about the people that are involved, excited to be a part of that company. And it's really awesome.
So for anyone that's excited about Hoyt, like Jared and I are, you can use the code HUNTR, HUNTR, on Hoyt.com.
Get serious, get Hoyt.
And we're back.
Hey-o.
HUNTR Podcast, episode 267, as we all keep ourselves in line.
We've been banging them out, man. 3 days or 2 days or whatever it's been. My wife says I'm a professional yapper. Because I get off the podcast and I go right on to phone calls and I never stop. Seems like it anyways. But.
There is a point of, I don't know if it was probably yesterday, like some of those days I get home and like in my head I'm still just processing everything. So I'm going to be like, why aren't you talking? I'm like, I've been talking all day. Mm-hmm. Like in my brain, I've been talking.
In my brain, I've been talking to myself all day.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So I catch myself like just in a quiet mode for like half hour.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you guys are listening, we appreciate you being here, whether you're on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. Those are the three main platforms that we drop these episodes on. We do that every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and pretty soon here, we may be into it by the time this drops. We'll be dropping Thursday nights as well, also at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. If you've written us on Instagram DM or the website, those are the two platforms that we check the most frequently. I do know there's a few that get lost in the cracks from time to time. So if you've heard this repeatedly on the podcast without a response, then I apologize.
Probably right back.
I personally
right back again.
Apologize for that. So try us again. We'll get back with you. You can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, on any of our partners' websites for a discount. There's some pretty generous deals out there to be had. Most recently, Predator Camo, you can get 20% off anything on their website with that code.
Yep, awesome.
We have some merch on our website. Nick's saving up for a wedding ring. Every cent sold, is a better chance at a yes. So
we're pulling for a yes.
We're pulling for a yes. So I certainly appreciate that. And other than that, here we go.
Yeah. If I did all my math correctly, I believe this is like early September, late August, something like that.
Okay.
Give or take. And I mean, it seems crazy. We're in it now.
We are in and out. Absolutely. There is no other way to say it.
Yeah. A good chance that you're hunting in North Dakota as this is dropping.
Yep.
Very, very good
I think
chance.
that's the 29th of August that it opens. Mm-hmm.
So somewhere right around there, depending on how Nick puts us in the schedule. But super excited about that. I mean, the time that we've looked forward to for so long.
Is it stressing you out a little bit that season's coming?
I'm a little behind. I'm good on food plots. And our guest today, I'll thank him for one. My real world beans are like amazing. Look awesome.
So do mine.
So if anything, I'm stressing a little on the fall plots because we lack of rain.
No. I'm talking about like it's here. Like we've been preparing.
Oh,
it's stressing me out a little bit in that I describe it like it's like Sunday evening's fine. I can sit down. I can make my list. I'm prepared. I've done everything ahead of time, but inevitably Monday morning's coming.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And everybody else is going to be flocking to the woods,
Yeah, there's a little bit. I still have a few things on my list. We're filming this in mid-August, so don't think that I'm that far behind. But I've got some camera stuff that I'm just not. I need to get up. I had a bear go through my Kentucky property and like wipe out all my trail cameras. So I'll be going back down there in a week. So I just got a few loose ends to tie up. But man, I don't know. I kind of just feel unlike maybe some people, I don't have a super giant that I'm hunting this year yet.
That is stressing me out.
Knock on wood yet. Yeah. So like I'm just kind of, I have some 5-year-olds that I'm excited to go and hunt, but like I don't feel any pressure. I'm just like, I'm ready to go, ready to hunt. You know, if one of those 5-year-olds come through, maybe I'll kill him. Maybe I'll wait. Maybe the kids will kill him. I don't know. I
need to get it right. It's a me problem. I need to get it right before it gets here. So
yeah, there's a nice part of that, right? Like of not, but I also like I'm yearning for a giant to show up and like, or for me to go find one. Like that's the other thing is like if you don't have one, you know, you can't just manifest it. Like you gotta go find one.
You know, it's just a little bit of those pre-race jitters. You know, it's like the engines are revving. We're like,
we've been
before the gate's gonna drop
for a long time, man.
And knowing that, you know, we've got some good ones to chase is adding to the anticipation.
Well, and I think the other thing is, you know, we say it. If you've gone back 5 years on this, it's like every September, October, early October, we talk about it. We're like, oh, we got. Just take a deep breath. Get all this time, dude. It goes.
That's usually me. Why am I? Yeah,
it goes so fast though.
Because I missed a couple days in the gym. I think is why that anxiety's creeping in on me.
It goes so fast, man. I feel like we hit October, and I'm like, I wait not just for hunting, but just the like feeling of fall and like leaves changing and the smell of fall. And I'm a college football guy, so I like all of that happening in October, and then like I blink and it's Thanksgiving, and I'm like, what just happened?
Also, we're in a drought. That maybe I'm looking for reasons now to blame, but like seriously though, we've had about a quarter. Like I don't know if any of your farm is your farm as bad as.
So Kentucky's lucked out. In the last 7 days, I've had 2 inches of rain in Kentucky. Yeah, I've just caught timely storms.
Yeah, normally I catch the timelies, but I think at this point I've got a quarter inch in. I mean, is it going on 4 weeks? It was 3 weeks. I was saying 3 weeks for a while there. Now I think and that last one kind of came and went. I think we're quarter inch in 4 weeks.
We'll talk to our guest today, but I looked, our farm in Illinois, West Central Illinois, 0.18 in all this month, which is now 14 days. Only 0.18. So it's
and we caught that half inch right before we went out. So the rest, I guess, has been since or before that.
Yeah, 0.18 would have been after that. So that's been in the last 2 weeks. So it's dry, and it doesn't look promising in the upcoming forecast. So with that said, we've got Don Higgins on today, which is exciting. But I brought up the real world beans because obviously timely rains in the summer, which we caught on most of our farms, have our beans looking great. So that, you know, even from a fall plot, we'll probably go in and save with cereal grains and stuff like that. Those beans really get us to the point where if you've got any of the corn out,
it's almost a problem. Like we'll have to ask them how to address this. Like I don't know how we're going to shoot anything out of them because they're like up to their necks.
They're tall, man. I actually shut off 2 cameras the other day they've just got engulfed, and I can't get to them, so I just shut them off because it was just like leaves like everywhere. Yeah. But it's crazy. I mean, I'm talking like a foot in the last 2.5, 3 weeks. Yeah. From a timing standpoint.
Shooting up.
So, but yeah, it's but that's been a little bit of a saver here is like, I know that I've got those, especially early season in Kentucky, which starts, depending on when this is dropping, within like a week, probably like that's my go-to early beans in Kentucky. That's my best chance of getting a velvet buck, you know, in the first couple days. So, so I'll rely on that. But from a fall stuff, we're dry, you know, water holes critical, probably. So yeah, just, you know, but yeah, I feel a little edgy. As well.
Yeah. So, well, let's set the stage here a little bit for today's conversation. So we've had Don on before, at least once, right?
Yeah, once or twice, maybe twice.
Once or twice. And as I'm recalling those conversations, I don't know that we ever dug fully into like the story of, or the history rather, of Don's farm, the piece that he's on in particular that he's managed for all these years. And also some of the origins of like, especially Real World. And I don't want to leave any other companies out. You know, he may have his hand in some other things too, but just in general, I think I'm interested to kind of go back to the beginning and hear it from, you know, the horse's mouth, so to speak, how all of these things kind of came to be. And he's definitely come under some, I would say, scrutiny.
Criticism.
Over the years, criticism. Yeah. Even from us in some cases. You know what I mean? That's what's prompted some of our original conversation and relationship, if you will. And so I think it'll be cool to get all that out on the table, air some things out, and start from the beginning.
If memory serves me correct, and Don and I were just kind of shooting some text back here this week before the podcast, is like, we've got a pretty banger title. So it will...
You got one already.
Yeah. If people see it and it mentions what I think is going to be mentioned, you know what's coming in this podcast. You know that there's going to be some hot topics on some things that have been discussed here recently. not just in relation to Don, but just in general in the deer world. We've talked about things like fences and stuff a lot here in the last 2-3 months, because we are seeing certain people put them up as strategic activities or just
activities would be the word to describe it.
Yeah, to do some sort of management of hunting pressure
manipulation
and movement.
Would be the word.
Manipulation. That's a great. So, as all that comes together, I think that's the way that we're going to take this podcast. And everybody knows us. Like, who knows where we rabbit hole down? But the whole point here is kind of, let's lay it all out on the table. Let's talk through it, and then people can make their own decisions from there.
Yeah. So without further ado, Don Higgins.
Don Higgins, everyone.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How do you respond to that intro? Hey,
a lot going on in the intro. A lot going on. Repping the beans, as we say on the shirt as well. So there you go. Established
Absolutely.
2008, in case anybody was wondering.
I had to dress for the occasion. I put the real world shirt on and the Chasing Giants hat.
Well, Don, I mean, just conversationally there, before we super dive into stuff, you're an Illinois guy. What are you feeling out there? Are you feeling a little dry? What's the temp?
Well, we had some great rains early in the year. In fact, spring planting was delayed by probably about 30 days for the farmers in my area, and in south of me even longer. Ironically, this year the crops north of us got planted before the crops south of us, which is totally opposite of a normal year. Because of all the moisture they had down south. And those nice rains continued through most of July. Now we're in mid-August and we could use some rain, but it seems like every day or two that there's rainstorms or pop-up showers coming across Illinois somewhere, but they're extremely spotty. I know we've missed a lot of them, but there's other areas that have got them. And, here locally, our corn crop could be the best ever, although we do need another rain here real quick to finish that crop out.
Yep.
The soybeans, if we would get a rain into August 1st of September, would help them a ton. But I mean, we're not terrible, but we could definitely use some rain.
Yeah, that's what we were kind of feeling at our farm. We timed everything right. To your point on like the corn crop, I mean, obviously we're not Illinois residents by any means, but I mean, I know when we were looking at our property, I mean, that stuff was 11 feet tall, like literally. It was unbelievable, how much that had put on.
Well, we got the really timely rains too when that corn was starting to pollinate. Here at home, there was one weekend that we got 1.7 inches, and then the very next weekend we got 2.4.
Jeez.
So and it came perfectly timed when that corn was pollinating. So we got a good crop started, and if we could just finish it out with one more really good rain, I think it'd be a record harvest on a lot of farms.
Yeah, it's funny. We keep talking about that. It's like when you get into this part, especially because of the moisture that we had throughout the spring into the early part of summer. Really, it was right after 4th of July, if my memory serves me correct, of when like those big like batches of rain kind of started to break up in the smaller storm-based stuff. But it's like, man, I'm looking at one timely rain in August and 1 or 2 in early September, and like we're off and running. Like that's it. That's all I need.
These August droughts are like so sneaky. Like they sneak up on you, but they're also, it's like this is the 3rd year in a row that I can recall.
Yep.
It's like we hit a pretty significant like month-long drought.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed with my food plots, I've been planting them for, 25 plus years now, is that in a typical year, you either get ideal conditions in the spring or ideal conditions in the fall for food plots. You hardly ever get both. And this year we had really good conditions in the spring, and it looks like we're setting up for another dry fall. And I think that's why it's important to have a good overall food plot program where you got both spring planted and fall planted. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yep. No, I think that's a good one. I mean, we talked about our beans and corn doing so well. Like, even though they don't look that great because of the dry and the heat, like a lot of my clover and alfalfa plots, get one good rain and we start getting those cooler temperatures in the evenings in September and some dewy mornings, and those things will explode to really fill some gap too there from an opportunity side.
If I can ask you a specific here, Don, when do you like to plant your brassicas? Do you have a particular week or a date?
Well, the brassicas where I'm at, mid-August right now is ideal, but of
Really?
course you need the moisture to make it work. Now the cereal grains, I would prefer to see them about the first week of September.
Yeah.
The kind of the rule of thumb that I've used is Interstate 70 cuts right across the Midwest.
Yep.
And right along Interstate 70, September 1st would be pretty much an ideal planting date. And then as you go north, for every hour you go north, and move that up a week. Another good rule of thumb is you want to plant those fall plots 45 to 60 days ahead of expected first frost. The thing that we've seen at Real World year after year after year is that guys seem to want to plant their plots in the summertime. Their spring plots, they want to plant them late. They drag that on into June and July. And then their fall plots, they want to plant them early. They want to plant them in July, the 1st of August. I mean, social media has just been a buzz with people out working plots right now. And the issue with that is even if you get good rains, those plants are going to become too mature and they're going to lose their palatability. That they are really attractive when they're younger and tender, and especially the cereal grains, the rye, oats, barley, things like that. They're just going to get too tall and they're going to lose their attraction. So planting too early is, in my opinion, probably even worse than planting too late. And it's going to depend on the year, and the weather you get. If you planted a little bit late and you instantly got rain right after you planted, you could be in much better shape than if you planted a month early and your rye is, or your whatever it is you're planting is 18 inches, 2 feet tall. It's going to lose its attraction and the deer are not going to hit it.
Well, that's the problem with these like giant, time frames where we're not getting the rains, is it's pushed me over the years earlier and earlier. Cause I'm like, if I don't catch a rain until August 15th, I'm like, what good is it doing me if I tried to plant the last week of July? So I've for the past 2-3 years, I've been a July 15th guy. That's been me. And we've caught droughts, and because of those droughts, the deer absolutely hammer them. So it's like by the time October rolls around, it's like maybe we got some rain by then, but they've thinned out a little bit, and maybe I caught 1 or 2 timely rains. So it's like we're really just guessing what the weather's going to do, trying to get the same like end result.
Yeah, and that whenever you get the first frost is going to be a huge factor as well. So if you planted 2 weeks later than ideal, but yet the first frost comes 2 weeks later than average, I mean, you're good to go.
I'm with you on the rye stuff too. We're looking at September 1st on that generally, and it's a nice time frame. See, I don't know about if you plant mid-August, but if you plant August 1st, like at the latest, it is a nice time to go back. That'd be 4 weeks after you're planting and hit it with nitrogen. Also, that's what I generally do.
Right.
Get your urea and rye down,
and then get your cereal grains down. Yeah, no, it's definitely. It's been hard. The brassicas have been the one that's been so hard because, like you said, with these droughty conditions, even if you get them germinated and going, we hit these droughts, and with the water content and a lot of those leaves and stems, those deer just mow them, like absolute destroy them.
Well, so today's August 14th. Am I right about that? As we're recording this, do you have your fall plots in the ground yet, Don, or still waiting?
Nope, I'm still waiting, and
wow,
really in not much hurry. In fact, I'll probably plant all mine last week of August, first week of September.
Really?
Over the years, Labor Day weekend has been a time when I'm typically looking at. Now I'm watching the weather. If I see a rain coming a week before that, I'll try to get in ahead of that rain. But that's my target time for planting fall plots.
Interesting.
I wonder if some of that's tied to soil fertility too.
It definitely
like
is.
Obviously where Don's at better than like where I'm at in Eastern Kentucky or something like that. We talk about that in the weed side. It's like, I grow weeds in 4 weeks, but Illinois grows weeds in 4 weeks.
Well, truthfully, I'm looking at it in Ohio and I'm like, dude, if we don't catch some timely rains, for me, I'm like, it's too late. I wouldn't even consider trying to get fall plots in Ohio right now. It's just basically default to rye or
cereal
whatever.
grain.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I've got some farms in southern Ohio too that I've got a couple business partners, and we buy and flip properties, develop them, and we'll hunt them for a year or two. And southern Ohio in recent years there was a terrible drought last year.
Oh man, it was the worst I've ever seen. I'm not far from you. if I know the county you're in, I'm a little south of you, and I told Jared I had these clover plots put in these ridges in the spring, right when it was still wet, not in the drought yet. By the time we got to September, there were cracks in those plots that I could take a 7 or 8 foot grapevine and stick straight down and not hit anything. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
We developed a property last summer, brought in heavy equipment and cleared plots and all that. And we was going to plant fall plots. And I remember going over there, it was probably around the 1st of August, just checking things out and to give direction to some of the folks that were helping us. And the dust in those plots, I'm not kidding you. Of course, that heavy equipment had been back and forth across these plots, clearing trees and using a root rake to get all that debris off the field. And that dust was going over the top of my shoe as I would walk across from my boot. It would literally come over the top. That's how deep the dust was. Wow. And I don't think I've ever seen conditions like that, but you just never know. From year to year, it changes. But Southern Ohio seems to be a real challenge.
It is. Well, I mean, I know, unfortunately, I think I was telling you yesterday or the day before, I've got a bunch of buddies in there because I have a farm down there too, and EHD is rearing its head in several counties right there, and it's just, like I don't even, it's just frustrating,
Yeah, we've had EHD reports from Southern Ohio as well, especially southeastern.
Yep, that's it.
The crazy thing is this year it seems like the EHD reports were coming in about a month ahead of
early.
What I've seen in the past.
Same.
Yeah, really early.
Yeah, same. That's what I've been talking to a couple guys in Athens and Washington and more, and it's just like, it's got my fingers and toes crossed, but I mean, you can't do anything. It is what it is. It's happening. It's already there. It's maybe your farm's spared, maybe it's not. Like that's where you're at.
Well, Don, I think we saw those properties when they were on market. Do you still own ground down there, or do you end up getting them sold, or?
Well, it's been a continual buy and flip process. So currently we still own 2.
Okay.
Right. One's in Scioto County. The other one I think is in Jackson County. But
yep. So that's
we've owned in Pike and Washington and just all across this. Basically, if you draw a line straight south of Columbus.
Yep.
South of Interstate 70, that corner quadrant of Ohio is where most of our properties have been.
Gotcha. Yep. So you have got some bought, invested, or flipped, rolled stuff into those, and you've sold a handful of them, but you still have, it sounds like 2 or 3.
Still have 2. We have a 75-acre piece in Scioto County, and then we got a 383-acre piece, I think is in Jackson.
That's a big one.
It's hard for me to keep track of them. I got a business partner that lives right there in West Virginia, right on the line with Ohio, and he has an oil and gas company, so he's got over 500 oil and gas leases in Southern Ohio. He finds these properties. It's just a great partnership, but he's always texting me or sending me info on properties, and I can't keep track of one county to the next, but kind of depend on him to stay on top of that.
It's an interesting area. I mean, I've been there now. I'm in Meigs, so just west of you. I've been in there for, I guess 2022 was when I bought that farm, and I've expanded onto it. But yeah, I mean, I've got mature bucks. I've got some stud young deer, and some deer disappear, some deer show up, and I think the hardest part, at least where I'm at, is like there's no ag, within many, many miles of my farm. It's cattle pasture and timber ground. And so, trying to be the guys that are like planning sustainable food sources, there's a lot of deer in southeast Ohio, a lot. So they eat you out of house and home pretty quick if you don't manage them or fence them off, and whatever, do all of the things.
Yeah, the last property we sold was 400 and some odd acres, but we had darn near 40 acres of food on that farm.
Wow.
We're putting the biggest plots that the terrain will allow us to put.
Yep.
Because just like you said, you got to address the weakest link, and the weakest link in that part of the country is food.
Yep.
And 5 acres of whatever is going to get wiped out in a hurry. And the other thing we do is we have a feeder at each plot that we have a local keep it filled for us, and sometimes multiple feeders depending on the situation. So if we have 4 plots on a farm, there's going to be at least 4 feeders there. Couple reasons. One, we're trying to draw those deer to one location instead of scattering those feeders back in the timber or whatever. We want that food all in one location to create some huntable travel patterns. But we also want to use that feeder to take some of the pressure off of the plot itself.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to kind of ask you about, I mean, obviously Ohio is a bait state, and that contrasts Illinois, especially, greatly. It's like we do things in Illinois that I would never do that way in Ohio, just because I'm like, well, I could just dump a corn pile right there and suck them right across, But I think we've invested a lot of time and money and effort into putting a lot of food onto these Ohio farms with, I mean, I'm going to say mixed results. Like, obviously there's a benefit. We see deer using it like that. It's improved the hunting and the age class and the herd that we have there. But it definitely seems like there's a glass ceiling to where it's like, if you're not baiting, basically you're definitely losing some. And even if you are, that's kind of the experiment this year, is Jeremy and I finally caved and we're like, I guess just good food plots doesn't cut it. I mean, we have to also have these feeders. So we bought a handful recently from a company called Texas Wildlife Supply, and they're heavy duty. I don't know if that's what you run or if you've seen those or not, but they're big, welded, they come right on a flatbed type of
2,000 pounders,
old 2,000 pounds. And so we're kind of, for the first time, experimenting with where do we put these things and how do we, do you hunt them? Do you not hunt them? How do they play a role in our strategy that has just been natural food for so long up until now, frankly?
Yeah. And that's another reason we've got the feeders. A third reason is, we got to compete with the neighbors. If neighbors got a corn pile out, we got to have one too.
Yep.
And then we want to put something in it that's different than the neighbors. We're not just using shelled corn. We're using a complete feed that's been sweetened up a little bit to hopefully get the deer hitting that. But as far as placement of feeders, a lot of times on consulting jobs or whatever, where food plots are not an option for whatever reason, I'm always looking for locations where the deer's access to that is very limited due to terrain. So if you put a feeder out and he can come from every direction to get to that feeder, he's going to be really tough to kill because he's probably coming in playing the wind. But if it's like on the end of a steep ridge where he's not likely coming straight up a bluff or something, his access to that is down the ridge or one of my favorites is you take a long ridge finger, and at the end of that ridge finger, before it breaks off into the bottom, create really thick bedding cover there and get that buck to bed there because they like to bed on them ridge fingers anyway. And then back farther on the ridge is where you put your food, and you're creating a good food to bed or bed to food travel corridor right down that ridge top. And then you can sit either side of that ridge top with your wind blowing like down into the bottom to the side of you. And as that buck comes out of his bed and heads towards that food, he's going into a quartering nose wind. It's something he's comfortable doing. You're not asking him to commit suicide. He's walking down that ridge with the wind quartering into his nose, but you're just off to one side or the other where your scent's going beside him instead of into his nose. And that's a real killer setup for feeders or corn piles or whatever in rough terrain like you see in southern Ohio.
Yeah. I related a lot of times to like rattling, is I think most people can relate to a situation where you're like, or at least you've heard it described, where you want to have a bulletproof setup to where there's almost no way that they can get behind you and they think that they have the wind advantage, whether it's a corn pile or a feeder or you're rattling, or whatever it is. If there's a point, if you give them a point to focus on, they're going to try to get downwind of it. That's the argument the other way too, is if I don't ever rattle or I don't use, those things to attract them, then they can't be downwind of all things at all times.
Right.
That's kind of the mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're setting up a situation like I just described, you want that feeder a good distance from that bedding cover that you've created on the end of that ridge.
Sure.
Because if it's only, say, 50 yards away, that buck will just wait till it's dark and then he'll cover that 50 yards. But if it's like 250 yards, there's a good chance he's going to get out of his bed and at least cover maybe half of that distance before it gets dark and come past your stand. And then you want to get your stand not close to the feeder, closer to the bedding.
Right.
So you're way more likely to catch him before dark.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you how and then we can move on from this. I'll tell you what the strategy that we have loosely landed on for the time being, at least on my place. So I got 2 feeders, and my plan is to put those not necessarily on destination food sources. So it's a little different from, it sounds like, how you guys have it set up in that regard. What I did was I chose 2 spots. Both of them are mineral sites currently. I've baited them both in the past. They're pretty close to, somewhat adjacent to, what I would call buck bedding areas. And I'll have bucks daylight there. They feel very safe. And the 2 other main things is that, number one, they're very hard to hunt, almost impossible. One sits at the bottom of a west-facing bowl. And I learned the first couple of years we had that farm, like, hey, there's no way to hunt on the down one side of that bowl without some kind of west wind catching and swirling in there. That's why they use it. The other one's a similar situation. It's on the west side of a timber lot. So there's just, the further you go, the more timber you're blowing your wind into. So it's just not a great hunting situation. Thirdly, I can access them with trucks and trailers to be able to fill easily. So I'm kind of abandoning those spots from a hunting standpoint, and I'm sacrificing them to say, hey, these are feeders that are going to be filled 100% of the time. They're gravity fed. They're not spin fed. I'll feed them all year round. We will never hunt them. I never want them to have a bad experience near those feeders. And in lieu of that, I have some fantastic perimeter stands. I mean, the closest one would be 100, 150 yards to that are good stands in their own right. So my plan is to kill those deer that are locked on the feeders at those spots. What do you think?
Well, yeah, there's more than one way to kill a buck. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing that's going to work every time.
Sure.
And there's nothing probably that's never going to work. I mean, we just got to play the odds, and first of all, we got to get that buck bedded on our property. Yeah. I mean, we can't expect to be pulling him from the neighbors. We need to get him bedded right there on our place.
Yeah.
And then we need to, as much as we possibly can, dictate how that buck is moving from point A to point B, and set the stage. I think that's one thing that a lot of property owners miss, is that they've got a golden opportunity. I think most of them hunt a property that they own the same way they would hunt a property they just had permission for. But owning property gives you a huge advantage to manipulate things to put the odds more in your favor.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Predator Camo.
Man, this one feels good, right? I know people have been looking at this picture over your shoulder for a while now. I think that was 2018, but we just, over the last, how many years, keep coming back to Predator Camo because it's been so damn good for us.
No doubt. I think we bought our first set off of Jen at the Archer Trade Show almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And Jen's still with the company, and the patterns have only improved since then. They actually were recently acquired within the past couple of years. We've had a chance this past year to go and meet with new ownership, talk about redesigning a lot of the old lines, plans for new patterns, all of the above. So really excited about what's to come, not only this coming year, but in years to come. There's a lot of good stuff coming from Predator.
Yeah, and I mean, for us, it's always been going back to that breakup pattern, right? That's the historic look, whether you're talking about the spring greens or brown deceptions or fall grays.
Yep.
I mean, that breakup is really what's been so powerful for us in a tree stand. And right now, they're letting anyone use the code HUNTR on the Predator Camo website and get 20% off any of the lines, including all the new stuff that dropped here in July.
Be the Predator. Well, Don, we'll let you roll on that. It's enough about us. If you don't mind, can you just lay the groundwork for the farm that you have and hunt? Kind of what are the origins of that? How big is it? And any details you want to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So the farm that I've got today, it was my grandparents' farm, or part of it was my grandparents' farm. So my grandparents passed away in the early 90s, and my grandpa had enough foresight to approach all us grandkids and see if any of us were interested in the farm. It was 30 acres. Is all he owned was 30 acres at the time. And I was the grandchild that had any interest. So he left it in his will, not free. I had to buy it, but at a predetermined price, that went to his heirs. But he did everything he could to ensure that I was the one that ended up with that 30 acres. And and at the time, I lived about 3 miles away in a small town, 250 people. My wife and I soon remodeled my grandparents' old farmhouse and moved there. We also added 10 acres right out of the gate to give us a square 40.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the original farm. We had beef cattle at the time, and most of that farm was pasture and beef cows with a few tillable acres. I think there's like an 8-acre field in that 40.
Mm-hmm.
But the beef cattle back then were not real profitable. I had a full-time job working a factory in town, and I learned about a CRP program where you could sign up pasture land and plant trees on it, and it paid fairly well. So I thought, you know what, I can turn this pasture into deer habitat and get paid to do it, and make more money than I do with the cows, and I won't have that daily obligation of taking care of the cows and working full time in town as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that started the ball rolling, and little did I know where it would take us. But I've added on to that farm numerous times. In fact, just this spring, back in May, I closed on 140 acres of it's all tillable. There's not a tree on it that touches the original farm. I made a couple other purchases 2 or 3 years ago. I bought a 40 that touches it. So today I've got a total of 300 acres. But for most of the time that I've been managing this farm, it was 120 acres. We had that original 40, and then we bought 2 other purchases that totaled 80.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, and even today, the majority of the deer habitat is on that original 120. But I do have a total of 300 today, in full transparency. At some point, I eventually, I was in probably my mid to early 30s. I was at work at my factory job. I was reading a magazine and not working like I should have been probably. And in the back of this magazine, it was an outdoor magazine, obviously, was a ad for whitetail fawns. And it really intrigued me. The area code was the same area code as ours. And so I called the number, and talked to the guy. And at that time, captive deer were nothing like it is today. I mean, we're talking 30 years ago. The captive deer industry had not exploded to the point it is today. And so, I called that number, and that very weekend on Saturday, I remember that they lived clear on the other side of the state. We live on the eastern side of the state, and this guy was on the western side of the state in Pike County. Is where he was at. And that very next weekend, my wife and my 2 little daughters, I mean, one of them was so small, she was in the car seat. She couldn't have been more than about 2 years old. We drove over to Pike County and visited this farm. Cold, rainy, misty day, wet, terrible weather. My wife and daughters sit in the car, bless their hearts. Well, I got out and spent about 2 hours with this guy stomping around in the mud looking at these deer. And I was just intrigued by these deer that this guy was feeding them out of his hand, and he was just telling story after story. And I think he had about 60 deer. Again, this has been a long time ago. And he knew these different does had names for them, and he was telling me stories about each deer, and just sitting there for a couple hours with this guy, or walking around in his deer pens, I was seeing or hearing vocalizations that rarely was heard in the woods. I was just learning things, talking to this guy. And we went home, and I thought, you know what, because I was just ate up with deer like I am today. And the more I could learn about whitetails, the happier I was going to be. And on the drive home, my wife and I were talking about it. I said, I'm going to get some deer. And that following spring, I found another whitetail breeder that's not all that far from where we lived, probably within, 10 miles or so, and went and visited them. And I put a deposit down on 2 doe fawns, and got those 2 doe fawns and bottle fed them. And I learned a ton just that first year from them 2 doe fawns. One of the most amazing things about those 2 doe fawns is I had them in a shed where we'd previously kept cattle. And we'd go out there and we'd bottle feed them, multiple times a day. And we named both of them, but one was Abby and one was Annie. And we'd go out to feed them, and the most interesting thing to me was that they would always bed in the corner of this stall in this shed where we kept them. And every time we went out there, Abby would be in the same corner and Annie would be in the same corner. They never reversed. And I just found it absolutely fascinating that these two deer would always bed in the exact same corner, like it was their beds and the other one wasn't allowed there. But, over the years, that, I hate to call it a business. It was kind of, I guess I'll call it a hobby for lack of a better term. It grew to the point where I think the most I ever had was maybe about 10 does. And I was, breeding them. And I got to the point where I was actually artificially breeding them using semen from some of the biggest bucks I could find. And I was doing experiments with feed and such. Real World's Maximizer Mineral actually started as an idea of mine, where I got 7 sets of twin buck fawns. A couple of those sets were from my farm, but then I went out to other deer breeders and I was looking for twin buck fawns, and I was getting both of them. And I brought those 7 sets of twin buck fawns home, and I separated them into 2 pens. There were 7 bucks in one pen, 7 bucks in the other pen next to them. Each buck had a twin brother in the opposite pen. And then I started doing experiments with minerals, and I was concocting my own mineral mixes. I was on the internet. I was studying stuff from some of the biggest whitetail biologists at the time. Dr. Harry Jacobson was one that I studied a lot of his stuff, and I was concocting my own mineral mixes and such. And what I was doing was I was feeding each of these 2 pens all they could eat of this feed ration. But in the one pen, I was dumping this mineral mix on top of their feed every day. And so they was getting the mineral that the other pen wasn't. And then each fall with captive deer, you've got to cut their antlers off, or being in captivity, they'll just kill each other.
Right.
So every fall we would tranquilize these bucks in each pen. We would measure their antlers and get a gross Boone and Crockett score. And then I would total up the inches in the one pen versus the inches in the pen that got the mineral. And I was comparing that, and I came to believe that you could, on a mature buck with good mineral supplementation, you could probably add about 10% to the total gross Boone and Crockett antler inches. I mean, I'm talking if you did this for the buck's entire life until he got up to about 5 years old.
Right.
Well, I took my mineral mix, and by that time, Real World had started. As you can see on my shirt, started in 2008. And we were introduced to a animal nutritionist, Dr. Aaron Gaines. I'm not sure if you guys
know
had
Aaron
him on or not. Okay.
From Analogics.
So I was introduced to him and met with him, and I showed him my mineral formulation. He tweaked it just a little bit. There's some certain things that need to be in certain ratios with each other. And to be honest, I was amazed at how close I was, because I had, no training in animal nutrition. I was just doing my own research online. And he did tweak some things, no doubt about it, and made it better. But I was pretty darn close, a lot closer than I expected to be. But that was the beginning of Maximizer Mineral. It actually started in my captive deer pen. But I used those deer to basically do my own studies. It wasn't anything that would stand up to scientific scrutiny by any means whatsoever.
Sure.
I just didn't have enough animals, enough numbers.
Sure. It was observationally, though.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did that for a number of years. And then, when I first got those deer, I would spend all summer out in the buck pens, because watching those antlers grow, watching them change, especially, if I hadn't seen the buck, if I'd been gone, for 2 or 3 days and somebody else was feeding them while I was gone, I come home and you could see the growth even in 2 or 3 days.
Sure.
On those racks. So I just, I was out there in the summer just living in the buck pen, especially in the evening time. But after a period of time, the new kind of wore off. The whole captive deer industry just didn't appeal to me. I'll put it that way. It just didn't appeal to me any longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I got rid of all those deer. It was 2017 was when the last captive deer was on my farm. Today habitat work is what I live for.
Mm-hmm.
I love chasing big deer. I like to shoot them, but to be honest, that harvest is kind of anticlimactic. It's the journey to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been extremely blessed that, when I started working on this and turn into deer habitat, each year the top end buck on my farm would be about 150-inch deer. And then about every 3 to 4 years, I'd get a bigger one. I'd get one that's about 170, and then I'd be back to 3 or 4 years of 150s. And the work I've done over the years, today I've got multiple 170s on that farm every single year. Most years I've got bucks better than that. Last year I killed a 190. The year before I killed a 181. And both those years there was multiple other bucks scoring over 170. And it's just been a long journey of I've had livestock my whole life as well. I got beef cattle even to this day. And a lot of what I've applied to my farm, I learned from the livestock industry.
Mm-hmm.
And especially on the management side of the deer herd. And, I kind of relate it to a cattle farmer is not going to just let any bull calf breed his cows. And I've tried to apply that to the deer. Now with a wild deer herd, it's really impossible. There's some real challenges, but I'm trying to kill at 3 years old. I'm trying to let these bucks all get to 3 years old. And then I'm trying to kill the worst 3-year-olds on the farm. And usually it's guests, family members, guests or whatever that I'm allowing to come in. And we're targeting these lesser bucks as they're 3.5. And we're letting the best 3.5-year-olds get older. And when I started, I was doing just the opposite. I was trying to keep every buck alive.
Yeah.
I wanted to get them all to 5-6 years old.
Right.
And what was happening was the better bucks in each age class were leaving or getting killed, or they were not around when they got to 4, 5, 6 years old. I was left with, big bodied 8-pointers that score 140 inches or 150 inches, something like that. And it's probably been close to 20 years ago now that I started that management program where I started taking out the worst 3-year-olds and allowing the best ones to move to older age classes. And I think that is probably the biggest thing that I've done in all the years that I've owned this farm that's made the biggest impact.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's younger than most guys who have a strict management as far as taking out management buck strategy. Than I've heard,
To a point. I mean, I know down south, like I've done a lot of stuff in Mississippi where they're starting at 2. They're killing.
Really?
Yeah. Basically, if I did a buck survey, like a camera survey, and I uniquely identified my bucks and assigned ages to them, if I look at my 2-year-old cohort, right, I'm taking the bottom third and putting them in a kill list.
Well, it makes sense. I guess, yeah, the only question there is like how early can you tell? So that begs the question, like, and I guess, Don, you've been doing this for years now. What would you say has been your degree of accuracy? There's probably no way to know, did the ones we killed would have gotten bigger, but did the ones that you kept alive, did they all meet your expectations or not quite?
Well, they don't all, but, a couple of points here. One is my property is very unique in its layout. What I've been able to do here, I know that 99% of your listeners are not going to be able to do it on the properties that they own or manage or hunt. My layout I'm very isolated in a sea of giant ag fields.
Yeah.
Corn and soybeans every direction. And I'm kind of like this oasis of deer cover in the middle of this sea of ag. And so,
have you seen his farm on a map?
I think so.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like if I'm looking at the right place here, Don, it's like nothing but ag for miles, and you have like an isolated block of timber just right in there. Pretty accurate.
And that's very accurate.
Yeah.
But one thing I did learn from the captive deer, again, the captive deer have been very instrumental in my education, is that the best yearling bucks are almost always going to, in a group. Let's say you had, I don't care if it's 5 or 10 or 100. the best yearlings are going to be the best 2-year-olds, are going to be the best 3-year-olds, are going to be the best 4-year-olds. Now with yearlings, especially in the wild, there's situations, that can pop up that you can't really foresee. For instance, a doe gets bred really late and she has a fawn in August, September, whatever, and it's a buck fawn. That buck fawn the first year is not going to be one of the best yearlings on the farm.
Right.
And that's why I'm giving them the 3. By 3 years old, if they're going to be really special, they should be showing it by 3.
Yeah. I would agree. We see that in most cases. Yeah. Well, Don, just while we're on the topic of the layout of the farm, like, do you see, I mean, that is super unique. You're right. And I think that's what a lot of people would, at least me at this point, knowing what I know about how deer will use something like that, it's like, yeah, that would be amazing if everybody could just be a block of timber surrounded by a sea of ag. It's like,
especially in a non-bait state.
For a hunter, that's absolutely best case scenario. Do you find, like, during the summer, are those deer ranging out, leaving the property, just lost at sea of ag is what I like to say, and then come fall, are you picking some of them back up?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because what I've seen is not what I expected to see. What happens here is in the spring, these deer disperse, and especially the bucks. Now, I've got my resident does that are here all summer long raising their fawns, but those bucks disperse and they go every direction from my farm, and they get in bachelor groups, and in different bachelor groups. And then they come back in the fall as the crops come out, as hunting pressure picks up miles away. It's just they slowly come in. I have the least number of bucks on my farm opening day, and I have the most bucks on my farm the last day of season. It's just a continual progression of deer moving in, and I did not expect that. I thought, I'm going to create the best deer habitat in the world, and I'm going to have giant bucks living here year round. And that is absolutely not what happened. Those big bucks leave.
That's interesting. Do you think that like the bucks that you end up killing in November, let's say, since they're not there at the beginning of the season, I mean, do you think they're getting hunted on other properties?
Some of them are, without a doubt. So these bachelor groups that I talk about that these bucks leave, I've found a lot of these bachelor groups. So individual bucks, here's the other crazy thing is, individual bucks, if there's a buck on my farm and he leaves to a bachelor group, which they all do in the summertime, that buck goes to the same bachelor group every year. He doesn't drag other bucks from home with him. It's this buck goes this direction, this buck goes this direction. They come back in the fall. And once they get that pattern where they got their summer range and then they got their fall winter range, I think it's about impossible to break that pattern. It's just, I've never been able to do it. And the other thing that's crazy is if I've got a buck on my farm, and I've got cameras scattered miles around my farm, every direction from my farm, I've got cameras. So I'm seeing my bucks in the summer before they show up. And I know what to expect. But if I've got a buck that I get his pictures, let's just say east of my farm, I never get his picture to the west or to the south. Almost never.
Right.
I mean, it's extremely rare for that to happen. It's almost like these bucks have developed an egg-shaped range. With the point of that egg is my property with the best habitat in the whole area. And it's like if they would typically have a round range, or roughly a round shaped home range, it's almost like I'm pulling them just a little bit farther over to my home farm. So if you could picture a bunch of egg-shaped patterns with the points of those eggs all being my property.
Yeah. And that's how cross-section diagram.
I mean, it's extremely interesting how these bucks shift their range in the seasons. The other thing that I've noticed is that my farm is just loaded with trail cameras, as you can imagine. And when these bucks show up from their summer range to my place, you can almost mark it on the calendar what day that buck's coming home. You can almost, and usually it's within 48 hours. And a lot of times it's the same date on the calendar I get the buck's first picture.
Jeez.
Yeah. Here, I'm going to ask you that. I got a couple questions. And tell me, Don, because I don't want to like spotlight your I know there's things that are too specific, so feel free to push back on this. First one, how many cameras you got on that 120 acres?
Oh boy, I have to count.
More than 10?
I would say 12 to 15.
Yeah. Well, that's not, I mean, that's high, but not an ungodly number. We have 11 on our 150.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and I'd say we're pretty full, but you know, I'm sure there's one or two other spots you
for sure.
you could stack them in. But
easily.
the other thing I was going to ask you is, and this is the one I didn't want to like spotlight too much, is how are you monitoring those big giant radiuses around? Or do you just have permission to run camera on some of those, or yeah?
A lot of it is, well, I am extremely blessed that my neighbors know exactly what I'm doing.
Sure.
They know how I make my living through my deer, and I get permission. Sometimes it's only permission to put cameras.
Right.
Sometimes it's permission to hunt as well. But yeah, I'm ranging out in any place that I could think that these bucks may be going. And I did this years ago. I mean, there's a lot of these locations where I've got these summer cameras where I've had them for 20 years there on the same tree or the same fence post or whatever. Yeah. Every year about the 1st of July, I'm going back to the same tree and putting that camera facing the same direction.
Sure.
Because history has shown me that's where I can get a picture of every buck in that area.
Yeah. It is amazing how far they'll range from summer to fall. I've had the opportunity too, because I've had some adjacent family landowners that let us run cameras and actually hunt for a few years too. And I would be like blown away that these deer would show up on our farm that I know for a fact just a few weeks ago were like 2.5 miles away. And I'm just, some did it every year and some didn't, I found, or maybe they ended up in a nearby woodlot or whatever, but it is crazy how far they'll do that.
Yeah, I think just social dynamics of what's happening on your farm, where they're at, the in-between, and, obviously where Don's at, the sea of crops versus, like, there's a lot of blocked woodlots, like, in between where you are.
Oh, for sure. I got way more timber than what he's talking about. Yeah. Well, Don, can we back it up to your farm, like the original 40 that you got there? You said it was about 30, and then you had like 10 acres of pasture that you picked up with that, and there was a house on it that you guys remodeled. I imagine you hunted it like right out of the gate, or even before your grandparents passed?
Well, I only hunted a couple times before my grandparents passed because it was very rare for deer to be here. I mean, it was rare to see deer tracks in the mud or whatever. And I think it was because, the Illinois deer herd, I remember when we didn't hardly have any deer. Mm-hmm. And I kind of grew up with the Illinois deer herd. And when I was younger, the deer were primarily along the river systems and the bigger timbers in central Illinois. A lot of them migrated up from Shawnee National Forest in southern Illinois, following the creeks and the rivers and the tributaries, whatever. And we just didn't have deer here. And I was able, when I started the CRP tree planting program I talked about earlier, I was able to plant little white pine seedlings, 18-inch seedlings, and the deer did not destroy them whatsoever because the deer weren't here. They didn't eat them, they didn't rub them, they didn't anything because there were no deer here. Mm-hmm. And so my dream when I started was, man, maybe one day I can have 4 or 5 deer here and actually be able to hunt. I just think it's been a real educational process to build this farm and then apply the lessons I learned with the captive deer and the livestock to make it what it is today.
Yeah. So if you weren't really hunting the timber, when you got those first 2 doe fawns, you said you put them in like a barn. Did you build some pens for them, or was that part of the timber or just the pasture, or how did that kind of evolve?
No, I had 3 or 4 different pens for the deer that probably totaled, I'm going to guess 4 to 5 acres. Where those pens were today, it's part of my cattle pasture. So I also had, when I got out of the factory job, I'd started a tree business, and I had a tree nursery here on some of that tillable acreage as well. So I ended up putting a tall 8-foot fence around that tree nursery and where these captive deer were. When I got rid of I sold that tree business eventually, and I got rid of the captive deer and brought back in beef cattle. So my beef cattle pasture, I just left up some of that original 8-foot fence from those other endeavors years ago. And today that's nothing but cattle pasture. But yeah, there was 3 or 4 different pens that totaled probably 4 to 5 acres.
Yeah, gotcha. And is there any benefit to putting timber in like a captive deer pen like that, or is it better to have it more like in an open pasture situation?
Well, I think ideally you want both. The
for
tree
shade and stuff like that. Yeah.
and browse. The leaves fall off the trees, the deer will eat them. I can tell you another thing I learned from the captive deer industry. I didn't do this so much, but some of the farms I visited back in the day, they would put their bucks during the antler growing season out in pens with no shade, and those bucks would be forced to bed in the sun no matter how hot it was. And that the growing antler was almost like a radiator that cooled their blood. It's full of blood vessels and such. And they really, and the theory was that being out in that sun would increase the blood flow to those growing antlers, and the increased blood flow would carry more nutrients to those growing antlers. Now, whether that's accurate or not, I have no idea, but that was a theory that was bannered about. I was more, I guess, concerned about the health of my deer. I wanted them to have shade and such.
Yeah. Yeah, they'd be cooking out there in that wide open for sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of theories when people were getting into that antler growth side of things and what they could do to expand on it. And, that's where, I mean, that side on the deer breeding end of things got really intense. You mentioned like the artificial insemination side. I mean, that was really big, especially in the early 2000s, started to catch on really strong there for a while and still is a huge part of it. I mean, there's plenty of deer facilities that's how they make their living is they've got breeder bucks and they pull, 20 semen straws plus per and sell them off. And they make a lot of money that way.
Yeah. Was that kind of and I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. I obviously know what it's like to just be like, I don't know why I'm interested in this, but I kind of want to pursue that. Like when you were first checking out, that guy advertised those doe fawns and stuff. Was he running like, did he have big bucks? And he's like, hey, was he a part of the antler thing? And he's like, hey, you could also have fawns and grow your own herd from these. Was that kind of the premise?
At that time, and his deer were basically just representatives of the wild herd. That'd be the best way to put it. I mean, he had bucks of all sizes, but no giants. And at that time, the captive industry was really in its infancy, and 200-inch bucks of any age were basically extremely, extremely rare in captivity.
Wow, even in captivity.
Yeah, even in captivity. So, another thing that really amazes me is how fast the genetics changed in those captive deer. And so they would they'd find a 200-inch buck and they'd breed him, and they would take those doe fawns that he produced, and they would find another 200-inch buck and breed them to those doe fawns. And they kept stacking those giant antler genetics for generation after generation after generation. And that's how they created these giants that are in the pens today. I mean, there's a lot of people that make the mistake that they're being fed or mistakenly think they're being fed steroids or something like that. They're being fed a very, very healthy ration with every nutrient they could possibly need. But the key is the genetics. I mean, it'd be like taking a 7-foot man and a 7-foot woman, and they have a child, and another 7-foot couple, has a child, and those two marry, and did that for generation after generation after generation. Well, soon every kid's 7 foot, and that's what's happened in the captive industry.
Right. Yeah, what's the one I sent you the other day? Lady killed a 610-inch deer. I think I texted you yesterday.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was like wild, just like explosion of just
610 inches. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
pretty gnarly.
Can't even imagine
that was
what that
was
like
just killed yesterday or 2 days ago, in a pen somewhere.
Sure. Wow. Yeah. HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by DeerGro.
Man, hard to believe, but DeerGro has been the sponsor that's been there since the beginning of the HUNTR Podcast. Back in 2021, I think that they were the only partner that we had, but it's such a cornerstone brand and set of products for our food plot strategy throughout the year.
No doubt. And it seems like we used to have an off season, but not so much anymore. It's like when the hunting season ends, it really rolls right into food plot season, habitat projects, all of the above. And the Plot Start and Plot Boost have been there since the very beginning. That's a cornerstone for all of our plots. The Plot Start goes on at the beginning, Plot Boost goes on midway through. And since they came out with all of the fertilizers, that gets mixed in with the Plot Boost application as well. And I can't believe the results that we've been getting out of that.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Like I said, it's all the work now that really produces the results in the fall. So right now, anyone listening to HUNTR Podcast can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, for 15% off any of the products at DeerGro.com.
Better food plots, bigger deer. So Don, were you interested then in like kind of the genetic aspect of that? Was there ever a business element to the hobby of like once you got the deer, you're like, hey, I could sell some of these or?
I mean, it became profitable.
In what sense? Like you could sell the semen essentially? You could sell the genetics for a certain deer?
Yeah, I would sell the deer themselves.
Okay.
I did have one buck that I collected semen from and sold semen, but it was really the deer themselves where the most money was made.
Yeah, a lot of those put and take operations essentially that would pay. Well, I mean, I guess if people were breeding, but like I know, like a Briarwood, right? Like they're buying bucks to put in the fence for people to hunt.
Okay, here's a stupid question. I'll be the one to ask it, and I'm asking it because my wife and I cracked up about it at dinner. I told her you were coming on, and she's like, "Well, how do they get the semen?" And for a minute, I'm like, "Do they jerk them off or what?" I don't know. So how's that? How do you collect that?
I've seen you laughing. I knew what this question was going to be.
I'm not mature enough to get past this part of the podcast, so there you go.
Well, so what they do is they tranquilize the deer, so he's out cold.
Oh.
And then they've got this little, they've got this little machine with a probe, an electro probe.
It goes like this.
They stick it up the deer's butt.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and they give them low current electricity.
Oh my goodness!
It makes them ejaculate semen, and they capture it. And I mean, when we collected the buck I had here, we got like 130 straws of semen.
Yeah,
some ridiculous amount.
Ridiculous.
But that's crazy. Whole captive deer thing. The last 2 years I had them, I was hardly even in the pens, and my interest has always been the wild deer.
Yeah,
and I just totally lost interest in it, and so ended up getting rid of them in 2017.
There was always like, because I worked in Penn State and Mississippi State.
That's the last possible answer I was expecting on how to collect buck semen.
Well,
so thank you for that.
And a lot of times for the does, they have what's called a seeder, and essentially you insert that to time estrus so that you essentially have all these does that you want to do artificial insemination. They're all in estrus at the same time, right. So it sinks it, and then you bring them in. And then
and what does that? What does it seeder?
It's called a seeder. Yeah. So essentially, you insert the seeder. It basically gets them to a point where they hit estrus, and then they like kind of timely.
What is it though? What is a seeder?
I don't know. It's like
a device.
Yeah, I mean,
a seeder is like if you could think of a tampon made of plastic.
Yeah,
that is impregnated with a drug.
Yep.
And you insert that into the doe, and it's got little wings that opens up with a string that hangs out, so it can't pull out. Those wings, kind of hold it in place.
Mm-hmm.
And it synchronizes the heat cycle. And, an interesting thing about going back to my experiences with the captive deer, and one of the things it taught me is there was one fall that we had synchronized all my does to come into heat. This one morning, and then there's a guy that would show up and do the actual insemination. And he shows up, we're in my shed, he's getting his microscope out and all his tools, and all these does are out there in the pen. They're all in heat. I don't remember if there were 6 or 8 of them. And the wind direction was blowing from this pen these does were in, across my yard, across the road, and across 1.5 miles of wide open ag field. And we're sitting there in my shed. We're looking out the window, and he's got his equipment out on my deep freeze, which is right there by the window. We look out, and across that wide open field with his nose right in the wind comes this buck, probably a 3-year-old 8-pointer. He comes to the road, stands there by my mailbox for just a little bit, crosses the road into my front yard, and and this is in broad daylight.
Wow.
He is walking right to those does in heat. Well, the crazy thing is, what I took away from all this experience was this buck had to have been over 1 mile away, probably close to 1.5 miles away when he smelled these does.
Wow.
And yet, I mean, he was willing to risk walking through my yard in daylight. But how far away that buck came from was what really intrigued me, because there was absolutely not a tree for over 1 mile.
Was that in November, Don?
Yeah, it was in November.
Yeah. So do you try to time the insemination period with natural rut
mainly
cycle
from
time?
the fawning side, right? Because you want the fawns to be born at the optimal time.
I see.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yes, it's happening at what would be natural rut.
Interesting.
periods.
I had never heard of a cedar, but what I have seen is, and I assume in the livestock industry, you've seen or heard of a sidewinder bull.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they curl them up.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know if it's their actual like wang or what. They're curling them up, and they put them in there to get the does or the what would they be? Heifers all on the same page there. So do they not have cedars that work for cattle?
They do.
Oh,
yeah,
they
actually,
do.
the cedars that are used in deer are
Are
actually
cattle.
were made
Yeah.
or for sheep.
Yeah.
They may have them for cattle, but the cattle are usually too big for deer. But the ones that we use in deer are made for sheep.
A lot of the things that we used for captive deer facility came from the sheep industry.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, here I'll ask you this too, Don. I not a touchy one, but obviously it's not one you would want to promote everywhere if it did happen. But have you ever had any deer get out of the pens?
I had one time. It was way back when I first had the deer. Probably, I'd had them for 3 or 4 years, maybe 5. I had a situation where I went in to feed one day. The wind blew the gate open, and I had one doe get out and was never able to catch that doe. And here's something super interesting. So I tried my best to catch that doe. I moved all the deer that were in that pen where she had been. I moved them into another pen to empty that pen, and I propped the gate open. And then I was trying to feed her in that pen to catch her to come back. And at that time I had and this was outside of hunting season. This was it was in late winter, probably like February maybe. And I still had my trail cameras out, and I was getting this deer's picture because she had orange ear tags in her ears. And I was getting this deer's picture on my cameras. But I only got them but I couldn't lay eyes on her. That was a crazy thing, how quick she almost reverted back to being wild. I couldn't lay my eyes on this stinking deer because I had a tranquilizer gun for my captive deer. I was going to do whatever I could to catch her. Well, she disappeared. I quit getting pictures of her. But there was a guy that was writing for, an outdoor column for the local newspaper. He wrote an article titled "The Orange-Eared Deer" because this deer had orange ear tags. And he had seen this deer where he hunts 2 miles to the east of me. Well, she was only there where he'd only seen her a time or two. This deer kept traveling to the east, and she crossed an interstate highway. The last time that she was seen, she was 7 miles from my farm, and she'd crossed an interstate, and she was never to seen again. That deer, I know there's been, people have thrown out crazy accusations that I've turned loose pen deer and such. Never happened, and this deer was not there long enough to give birth to fawns. This happened in like February, and she was there no more than 3 weeks, probably more like 2 weeks, and then she was gone. And before it was even time for fawns to be born, this deer was 7 miles from my farm, headed away.
Yeah,
and so it was just very interesting that how quickly and how far that deer went. But that's the only one that ever, got out of captivity with me. And that's been...
And never to be seen again. And the last you heard was 7 miles away.
Yeah. And that's been 25 years ago that happened.
Yeah, right. Here's another one I've heard. I'll just let you address this one head on. So somebody was like, well, how far did that doe make it? And then where did you kill any? Have you killed deer in proximity to where that doe ended up?
No, I haven't killed deer within, I'm trying to think here, at least the closest one that I can remember would be Trump that I shot in 2017. In 2017, we're probably was looking 15 years after that doe got away.
Sure.
And he was probably 7 miles from where this doe was at.
Where the doe was, yeah. I guess I should ask to even preface that question, Don. Do you hunt other properties in the area, or are you hunting almost exclusively?
Oh, absolutely.
You are, okay.
Yeah. I counted up the other day. I've got trail cameras right now on 26 properties.
Wow.
Now, not all of them do I have permission to hunt. Some I just have permission to put the camera.
Right.
But I'm basically covering as much territory as I can, trying to find the biggest bucks that I can, and wherever they happen to be, I'm going to go after them. So I've got properties I've had permission for years that I've never hunted yet.
Yeah. So when people look at a Don Higgins resume and they're like, man, look at all these bucks. How's he doing that on 120 acres? Technically, you're not.
No, actually, and I'm glad you guys brought that up, because that's a point that I was wanting to make. Is I think there's a idea floated around out there that I kill all my deer on this one property, and if I had to hunt elsewhere, I wouldn't kill the bucks I've killed. Well, on just permission properties with no lease money paid, no habitat work done, not a single food plot, I've killed a 214, a 193, a 185, a 180, and a boatload of bucks 140 and better in my younger days. So they're not all coming right from this farm. Now, in recent years, as this farm has really started to shine, a bigger percentage of my bucks are coming from this farm. So, but if I go back to 2017 was the year that I shot Smokey and Trump. Smokey was shot on this farm. Trump was shot about 3 miles away on another farm. In 2020, I shot Mel on this farm, and then I shot the Joey buck about 7 or 8 miles in a totally different direction. Both those years, my 2 Illinois bucks totaled over 400 inches. But both times, 1 buck came from my farm, 1 buck came from a permission property.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like you were saying, your farm early season doesn't really have a ton of bucks, but as it gets later in the season, progressively you draw more in. So I assume, are you killing more of your bucks then in whatever, November, December on your farm and hunting elsewhere earlier? Or what's that look like?
Well, usually by the 1st of October, I've got a lot of bucks on the farm.
Okay.
Because when the bachelor groups start breaking up around the 1st of September, that's another thing that starts heading bucks my way. Recently, I've killed a lot of deer in October, just because they're here and just because I've got the farm set up. And where if a buck shows up on this, I don't want this to sound arrogant, so I kind of hesitate to say it, but if a buck shows up on this farm, I feel that I can kill him at some point. Now, I'm not saying I can go out in a week, I'm going to get him killed, but in some point during a 3.5 month season, if there's a buck living here, he's going to come in front of me, and I'm going to get a crack at him.
Yeah, and I don't think that's arrogant. If people could understand, like, Illinois in general, but just the layout of your farm, how much timber do you have?
Oh, let's see, there's 30. Probably about 40 acres.
Yeah, I saw
40 acres of timber, but I've also got about 30 some of switchgrass.
Yep.
Which is bedding cover as
well.
But
so even still, so half of the property cover, right?
Or no? Well, even just if you want to call whatever. I'm just saying, timber. So you got 40 acres of timber. It's like I can wrap my head around that. Is it just a square block, or is it is that kind of mixed into some of the CRP that you have?
Well, I've got a 30 acre. The original 40 that we started with after my grandparents passed, 30 acres of that is timber today.
Yep.
So way back when I put that CRP tree planting project in place, those trees that we planted back then, they're big enough today I could put a tree stand in them.
Oh, wow.
So I got that 30 acres of the original 40 is timber. And then I've got 2 smaller tracts of timber that are probably, I'm going to just guess, let's just say they average 5 acres each. So that gives me like 40 acres of timber.
Yeah. And those are like little satellite pockets of timber. I think I've seen those.
Yeah. You know what, guys, I want to extend a special invitation to you two guys, because, I know you guys come to Illinois, you got property here. If you'll show up at my farm, I will take you on a tour on my side-by-side. I'll show you exactly what this place looks like, and I will buy your lunch.
There we go.
And
buy our lunch.
All you guys got to do is agree to come back on the podcast and tell people some of these stories that people have promoted are not accurate. As far as, there's people have said that, I've got high fences and with one little hole in them that the deer come in and out where my captive deer used to be.
Mm-hmm.
None of that is true or accurate. And I would love for you guys to show up. I'll give you the grand tour and buy your lunch if you come back and report to your listeners the truth.
Okay. Here would be my stipulation is, would you let us come out during shed season sometime?
Possibly. The problem with shed season is that I'm on the road consulting so much, but if we could work it, that's fine.
All right.
You basically told me in the text message, not during the season.
Not during hunting.
100%.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let you on our farm. Yeah. We understand each other for sure. I think lunch would be great. My stipulation would be if we could do it in shed season, and if nowhere's off bounds, I would be all for it.
The one caveat there is I got 2 grandsons that love to shed antler hunt. Okay. And if we could get everybody's schedule on the same page, absolutely.
Well, and to clarify, I'm not.
Oh, you got to leave your antlers too.
I'm not picking up even any sheds. I'll drop a pin for you, and your grandsons are. I'm not there to pick up your sheds. So.
But you say that confidently, Don, because we're not going to be walking the property line against an 8-foot high tensile fence.
Well, I do have an 8-foot fence on one property line, and I've never ever tried to hide that fact.
Okay,
I've got one neighbor that has 5 acres, and that includes his house and his yard.
Mm-hmm.
That was letting, and it sits right against my sanctuary, and he was allowing people to come and hunt his property, and every deer they shot came out of my sanctuary. They shot it, ran back into my sanctuary, and here the phone rings. I want to go look for my deer.
We hear that story
I tried talking to the guy. I couldn't work anything out with him. I said, okay, I'm going to solve the problem. I put an 8-foot fence down that side, and problem solved.
Gotcha.
Never have I tried to hide that fact, and I'll show you the fence when you're here.
So how long is that? What does that look like from a length side?
So he was originally, I went about halfway down a 40, the original 40 that I talked about. I went halfway down my north side, and what happened was those deer it starts at the road.
Yeah, right.
So on the end away from the road, the deer were cutting around the end of that fence and still hitting this guy's property.
Still dropping in.
I didn't really accomplish anything. So I ended up finishing to the corner of that 40, and then I made the turn and went just a little bit, and that solved the problem.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that makes sense on that side. And so, okay, minus that one, we're not going to go around and see other fences closing in your property.
Well, I wouldn't even phrase it like that. Like, let's dig into a fence conversation, I guess. We can start with your property and extrapolate it to just fences in general, I guess. So a lot of guys today are using fences to manipulate deer movement, whether it's, so you got perimeter fences, if I can classify them this way. You got a perimeter fence on 1, 2, 3, or 4 sides,
which is more for immigration, right? Like on and off property.
Yeah.
Would you classify for perimeter fence?
For sure. And then I would say you have food plot fences. So, hey, whether it's a 2-wire or you got an 8-foot to keep them out.
Which I assume a lot of us do. We just talked about Southern Ohio. It's like you want to grow beans in 3 acres, you best put a fence around that thing or it's going to get mauled.
So you got a food plot fence, and then I don't know what you would call an interior manipulation fence.
Be like a movement manipulation.
Yeah, exactly. So, so it's not a perimeter fence, something to direct movement in or around a certain part of the farm. I guess those would be the third, 3 types of fences that we're talking about.
Yeah, a diversion fence. And I do have one of those. It's probably, it can't be much more than 100 yards, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe between 100 and 150.
And is that what you would dictate as like a high fence or like just a normal low fence? Like
no, whenever I took those divider fences down in my captive deer pen.
Yep, just use them.
I had that fence laying around. I just used that. So it's an 8-foot diversion fence. Never tried to hide that. I'll throw out that I had classes, Whitetail Master Course. I called it on my farm for like 4 years. Just the last year that I had that, there was 150 students from 26 states that attended, and there's probably 500 total students that came to my farm. We walked right up to this fence. 500 people have been on my farm and seen this fence. And again, there's people out there trying to make this out as something that it's not. I've never tried to hide what it is. And in fact, 500 people have been on my farm and stood right at the end of this diversion fence and seen what it is.
Yeah. Does that diversion fence connect to your perimeter fence?
No.
No, it's like totally separate.
Just on its own little island there.
Is there something that you feel like is an endpoint of it? Is it like in your timber, or is it how do you use it? How does it benefit you?
Well, it's right at the edge of that 30 acres of timber that I talked about. And when the deer come out of that timber, they're going to hit a food plot on each end of that diversion fence. Or they could hit a switchgrass field. And without that diversion fence, there's that travel corridor between that wooded cover and the food plots and the switchgrass. That travel corridor is, 150, 200 yards wide. And that diversion fence takes that middle out and forces them around either side. I'm not going to argue with anybody about the ethics of it. I think everybody's got their own opinion.
Sure.
I don't try to hide what I'm doing. I'm honest. And if a guy is totally against it, no problem whatsoever on my part. I can tell you this, on my consulting visits, I'm looking at 70 to 80 some properties a year. And 5 years ago, probably about 10% of my clients would even consider a fence of any kind, perimeter, diversion fence, whatever. Now that number is 90%. And the reason for it is the biggest hurdle for us to grow giant bucks on any property is getting the age on them. You talk to anybody, it's, I don't shoot them, the neighbors will. And when a guy spends hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on a hunting property, and some guy next door doesn't even hunt, but he lets some guy come in and hunt that doesn't invest anything into the process, and that guy sits there and shoots one good young buck after another year after year, then it's just become way more acceptable. And the other thing is, I often say that the Midwest is Texas about 30 years later, because I remember when the Midwest, there was no such thing as a hunting lease. None. When I was younger, nobody had a lease in the Midwest, but in Texas, it was common.
Right.
Fences have been common in Texas for a long, long time. They are coming to the Midwest. There's going to be more and more every single year. I know people that have businesses doing nothing but building fences on hunting properties because of the situation. And in my opinion, it goes back to the game and fish departments. They refuse to manage for quality.
Absolutely.
And because they refuse to manage for quality, folks with the finances to do so are taking matters into their own hands. All right, if the state is not going to help us grow bucks to older age classes, if they're not going to manage for proper sex ratios, proper age structure, then I'm going to do everything in my power to do that. And guys, I'm telling you, 90% of my clients today are on board with a fence, when just 5 years ago that was 10%.
And we've tried that with these agencies. That
we agree with that assessment 100%.
Yeah, when the opportunities and the things, and it's like, guys, what you don't realize is, in your mind, giving hunters opportunities and more opportunities, the people who have the means to do so, and in today's whitetail society especially, are managing for bigger deer and own property or paying for leases, they will continue to isolate themselves one way or another, whether that's buying more land and kicking people off, getting more leases, kicking people off, putting fences up and blocking people off. Like, their mindset of opportunity is driving a bigger divider every hunting season, more and more. And they, for whatever reason, I won't say all of them, the majority of them are not comprehending it.
They just keep going. They're like, I think maybe we should, there's states even this season or last season that are like starting bait. They're like, let's incorporate this. This seems like a good idea. They're like, or it's a cash grab in a lot of cases, or, you see
both.
Crossbows are now, I don't know if it's 100%, but it's, dang close. And they're not perceiving that, like, the increased opportunity that they're giving everyone is driving a wedge, like Jeremy said. And it's like, he who has the highest fence and the biggest corn pile wins.
And I will never, ever try to talk someone into a fence. If they don't want it, I totally understand, respect that opinion. But in my opinion is that let's just use that diversion fence I got. Let's say it's 120 yards long.
Mm-hmm.
Is that any different than if I piled up trees 15 feet high for 120
No.
yards? Is it any different if I took big round bales of hay,
Yeah.
lined them end to end for 120 yards? It's just a different structure that's going to dictate deer movement.
Yeah.
And it's a little more permanent than those other things, but does the same thing.
Well, and I would argue to a point, like that diversion fence maybe is making you more lethal, but it's not necessarily protecting deer more, right? Like a diversion fence in the property is used more from a hunting strategy, not necessarily a management strategy. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. Absolutely accurate.
Yeah.
And you know, the perimeter fence that I got on my north side, I wish that thing wasn't there. I wish I didn't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I didn't, I was going to lose so many young bucks that I might as well just quit the whole management program. But at the point that I built that fence, I'd invested my entire life into this project, every spare penny I had. I was not about to let these people show up that have never invested anything in the local deer herd, sit my line and shoot deer as they come out of my sanctuary, have them run back into my sanctuary, and then expect me to let them go get them. And I also want to throw out, just to clear the air on some false narratives, I have never, ever denied anyone an opportunity to track a deer onto me that they shot.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I went with them and helped them track deer that they've shot that ran on me. So, you know, there's just a lot of, I hate to say it, but I think there's a lot of jealousy, and I don't know if I'd even call it misunderstandings, but, you know, people are looking for excuses on why somebody was successful. And they come up with ideas, and sometimes those ideas are even plausible. I mean,
You're like, that's a good idea.
Well, it's plausible to think that a guy that once raised captive deer might have turned some loose.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there have been people out there that have done it. I would guarantee that they have.
Well, dude, it's amazing to me how a property, it shouldn't be offensive, but like it's not a big giant property. Like it's 120 acres, you know, plus not counting the ag. And yet there's more like suspicion, more, you know, accusations or criticisms than any other like deer hunting property that I know of. Is pretty fascinating. Like it's almost like a Area 51. I'm like, it shouldn't be this complicated. I can see it. It's right here on a map. You've invited us to come out and walk it. We're inclined to take you up on it. I'm like, what's the big mystery here?
HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Man, those Lone Wolf stands have become such a cornerstone of our equipment over, you know, recently, but I mean, also we've been using these stands for a long time, even the original Lone Wolves. They're all built right here in the United States. The lines just keep getting better and better. Cody and Andre and the whole team just keep innovating and introducing new stuff into the line this year. And they've got some new things coming this year.
Yeah, so this year we've got the Patriot Series, which, you know, a lot of people are talking about this as being the cheaper, just fixed position side of things. But let's be honest, they can be mobile too, right? They weigh 12 pounds, but they're built from a value standpoint. So for guys like us who want to have 3, 4, 5 preset stands out there for certain wins, we can put this Patriot Series out there, have them ready. Nothing better than slipping up into one of these fixed position stands that's already set on the right wind.
No doubt. And so this year, as of right now, you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR. It's a one-time use promo code. Gets you 10% off anything on the Lone Wolf Custom Gear website. That's any of the custom gear stuff, any of the Patriot Series. So whether you're planning on getting into one for the first time or you want to stack a big order here before the season, code HUNTR will get you 10% off.
Hunt like a wolf.
I can open a real can of worms here, and I guess I'm going to.
This is the place.
Well, just to be brutally honest, what I'm about to share has been 7 years in the building, and I'm not sure where to start. I'll say what I'm about to say came after a lot of prayer and thought and consulting with. I actually have an attorney that I've consulted with numerous times over the last few years on this situation. And I consulted with him before coming on this podcast today to see what I could say and not say, because there may have to be some legal action taken against a couple of people. So back in the day, I had a couple of business partners, got along great for about 10 years. And then, and I'm not looking to make anybody look bad here. I'm just looking to get the truth out, because there's a lot of untruth that's been told. Well, we had one of the business partners walked away before that 10-year period, and then the other one, we had a disagreement and went our separate ways. He got out of the business, and a new partner joined in. But when he got out of the business, him and his brother, who had been a partner, did everything they could to trash me and destroy my business. And Jeremy, I think your phone is sitting right there.
It is.
I want to, give me just a second here. I want to send you a screenshot. Let me see if I can find it here. As an example of what these guys have tried to do. And I want to read this. And I don't care if you put this on the screen when you produce this podcast.
If you read it, people are listening right now for sure.
Okay. It says, and give you the context of this. So I was on a seminar tour out east. I was in Pennsylvania, New York, and up to the Northeast in the summer of 2022. And each day I was posting a picture of the previous night's crowd, and I was telling people, tonight I will be at this location. Come on out. Hope to see you. And this former business partner right here, he says, well, it's too bad all these people don't know the truth about you, how your property that your bucks are coming off of have an 8-foot fence around it. It only has one little opening in it, and how you have released high bloodline does that you use to raise on your property. Nothing but a con man. Not only is this totally inaccurate, this gentleman and his brother both have shot deer on my farm, bucks on my farm. They had no problem hunting it whenever we was getting along. But all of a sudden, when there's a disagreement in the business and we part our ways, they start resorting to lies. And I've got literally, like I said, I consulted with an attorney before I got on here today, and one that I've talked to several times about this situation. These guys have done everything they can to destroy me with lies, even though they sit right here on my farm and shot bucks. And, you know, Chris Brackett was recently on this podcast, and he was basically saying some things about me that are not true. He talks about me and fences, and he talks about me and captive deer. Well, in Chris Brackett's defense, he did not come up with those two topics. Chris Brackett didn't just dream up in his head one day, Don's got high fences all around his farm.
Sure.
He didn't just dream up in his head that Don turns loose captive deer. Right here is where it came from.
Yeah, it's been out
I've
there.
got a whole, I've got that was from 2022. I've got a whole file of examples of these two guys bashing me either in writing, or I've got names and dates of when they bashed me. And I've been hoping that it would never come to this point, that we would never end up in a courtroom. But in light of the fact that these rumors just continue to grow and continue to grow, I think there's a fair chance that we're going to end up in a courtroom. And when we do, these guys have spread this to some of the biggest names in the industry. I mean, bigger than Chris Brackett's name, bigger than my name.
It's defamation, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about at this point. And
what impact has that had on my business and reputation? I can't hardly make a social media post today without somebody saying something negative about me and high fences and me and captive deer. And there's no truth to it. Now, I can let you guys on my farm, and I can prove to you that the fence thing is a lie.
Yeah.
500 people have been here and have seen it.
Yep.
But how am I going to prove to you that I never turned loose captive deer? There is no way for me to prove that. But I can take these guys to court, and I can say, you made the accusation, now prove it.
Yeah.
But these guys have shared this stuff with some of the biggest names in this industry, bigger names than Brackett and myself. And those guys could find themselves with a subpoena to appear in this court. In this case.
Absolutely.
And they're going to have two choices. They can either lie or they can tell the truth. But I know the stories they've heard, and not just big names. There's all kinds of former consulting clients, things like that have reached out to me, and I got a file full of information on these two guys. That's where this whole thing started from.
Yeah.
The whole idea that I'm he said it right there where I just read. I've got a fence around my farm with one little opening. He said it right there. I've released these captive does. Totally false. He's going to get a chance to prove it in court if they keep it up.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, first of all, obviously, those kind of situations, especially with from a business, derived situation of what happened and who knows there, like how bad feelings, it all happens. But when you get into these, especially with today's era of social media, when you get into these things of dropping these nuggets, like we've been in it with guys like Bomar in the past. Like one of the first times we ever talked to Josh Bomar, first thing that I said to him, like, hey man, are you releasing, does in your property and killing them? And do you have a because they just get out there, right? And it's this industry, especially, like we're a bunch of little teenage girls, like we just chat and share, and it gets twisted 15 different ways. So to your point, Chris says that I'm sure he saw it from that post or somebody else's post or somebody telling him there, and like that snowball effect, it doesn't go away very quickly, right? We're talking, you said that was 2022, and here we are 3 years later, and that snowball is still out there, and it's still building, and it's still lingering essentially over everybody.
Don, can I ask you this? Because you know more about captive deer than I do, and genetics and stuff like that. Is there a database of like recorded high fence genetics? Like if somebody said, well, let's just test deer on a property to see if they have a strain of, would there be a database that could check that against?
Well, there's a, what's it called? DNA Solutions. There's a company called DNA Solutions out of Oklahoma City that does have a database of captive deer.
Oh, and they're testing
DNA.
For all of the alleles or whatever for the CWD stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, they're basically, it came about because the captive industry got a little bit shady, and people were claiming that I'm selling you a doe fawn out of this giant buck, and
it wasn't actually out of the line
from that buck. It was just a run of the mill deer. So there is that database at DNA Solutions. But like I said, I did a lot of prayer before. I decided to use this podcast to clear the air. And one interesting thing happened a couple days ago is I pulled up YouTube to see if I had any messages, and one of the videos at the top of the screen was a sermon by Billy Graham. And I don't know why, because I don't listen to Billy Graham, but for some reason this sermon is at the top of the screen, and I took some notes here. So
fine.
No, go for
Pardon me for reading some notes.
No, go for it.
His sermon was titled "Stop Being Kind to Everyone." And in that sermon, there was just a list of fantastic quotes. I mean, dozens of fantastic quotes. And one of them I copied here just to share. Silence may avoid conflict, but it allows darkness to spread unchecked. And that's what's happened here. Is I should have addressed this at least 3 years ago. And I've just tried to remain silent. I've blocked people that make accusations. I should have addressed this head on probably 5 years ago is when I should have addressed it and nipped it in the bud right then. But I just out. I'm not here to bash people. I don't want to cause anybody any problems. I don't want to cause Chris Brackett any problems. I don't want to cause even my former business partners who started this crap. I just want the truth out there. And I'm willing to stand toe to toe with those guys today in a courtroom or wherever it needs to be. And we're going to get the truth out.
Well, I think it's admirable, Don. I mean, obviously you have nothing to hide here, and but if you take it out of context and like think about the person who is charged with murder, but they didn't really commit the murder, yet they never take their own stand. And that always, to me, I'm like, why would they not want to be on the stand? Like, why would they not want to? And I get it from a legal standpoint, like this could be construed this way or this is twisted this way. But at the end of the day, if you're innocent and you're accused of something, like, I think most of society says, well, you should have spoke up. You should have said something.
Well,
on that.
Even before that, it's the court of public opinion. It's like
which is rough.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely sympathize with if you're a guy who's already been known as killing some giant bucks, or and maybe there's even a glimmer of like, well, there was pen deer on. I mean, there's situations there that anybody could easily draw a line and be like, well, of course he's doing this.
2 + 2 = 4.
I could see that.
Yep.
I can see that.
Well, it was a plausible
Sure.
accusation.
Yeah.
But it's also a false accusation.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I would address this 5 years ago. I've been in contact with attorneys 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I've started a file more than 5 years ago on everything that I could document that these guys have done. It has finally just reached a point. To be honest, your last Chris Brackett interview was what pushed me over the edge.
I thought you were going to say at the top of the screen you saw a thumbnail that said "Fences up, Bucks down" with Chris Brackett.
Yeah, that would have done it as well.
You know, Chris Brackett and I have probably the weirdest relationship experience that I've ever had in my life.
I got to tell you, I sure am enjoying it from the outside looking in. Not to make light of either of your, this situation, but
here's the crazy thing about it. I never knew Chris Brackett. I knew his name, but that was it. And then he got in trouble, and I didn't comment on it or nothing. I mean, it's none of my business.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody makes mistakes, and
yep.
And I seen him being bashed on social media, and I stood up for him. I posted John 8:7. And I didn't even, that was just reference to a Bible scripture. I didn't even put the scripture. I wanted people to go look up the scripture.
Right.
Well, John 8:7 is, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone."
Right.
And I stood up for Chris Brackett. And then, probably a couple months or so after that, I was at the Illinois Deer Classic, and Chris comes by, very cordial, very polite, very friendly. Introduced himself, shook my hand. He even invited me to his home for supper that night. I didn't go because that show was so long that, after standing on concrete for all day, I'm ready to go lay in my bed.
Sure.
And, I thanked him for the invitation and didn't really have too much interaction with him after that. And then sometime down the road, I start getting messages from friends saying, "Brackett's bashing you." And first couple times I just let it roll off and didn't even think much of it. And finally it's like, after the 10th time that 8 different people have told you you're getting bashed by this guy, I went right to him. I mean, the Bible tells us if we have an issue with someone, you go right to that person. You don't go to social media or anything else. You go right to that person. And so I didn't have Chris's phone number, but I contacted him through social media messenger. And I said, "Chris, I don't know what's going on. I've heard you've been bashing me. I don't know what I've done to upset you. If I owe you an apology, I'll be glad to apologize, but you're going to need to tell me what I did, because I have no idea why you would be upset at me." And man, he just flipped out and just went on a rampage, and we go back and forth. And I just keep asking him. I said, "I have no idea what I've done. You've got to tell me what I've done. I don't know what you're mad about." And to this day, he has never, ever stated what I've done to make him mad.
Yeah.
And, people tell me that Chris has got a daily dawn bash on social media or through something. I mean, recently, it's almost hilarious, really. Recently, I posted a short video of me on top of a grain bin glassing for deer. And apparently he took offense to that.
He did.
We saw it.
What the heck is wrong? What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Do you know?
I don't know.
Do I know what?
I just laugh.
Do you know if there's a particular incident that triggered Chris with Don?
With you guys? No, I don't know. I guess what I would say is like,
doesn't he plant real world beans?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just, it's not an excuse for him either, but it's that Chris Brackett is Chris Brackett, and everybody knows that, including Chris Brackett. So even him, it's like, we could go and be like, "Hey, rope him in on this," and he would be like, "Okay, you're right. Yeah, I was wrong. I don't know why I blew up at that or whatever." And go ahead, Don.
Well, I want to hand him credit because he heard this and he speaks out about it. He
there's no filter on Chris Brackett.
Well, how many other people in the industry heard it and they just whisper behind closed doors to their buddies? Yeah. Oh, that Don,
a lot.
And yeah, exactly. At least Chris Brackett has the guts to stand up and say it. And I don't have a thing against him personally.
Sure.
I'm 62 years
old.
Nor he
you, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I'm too old to hate. I don't even hate my former business partners that done this, but the truth's going to come out.
Yeah.
And to be honest, they should come out and give me an apology, just like I offered to apologize to Chris if I did something to offend him. Now, I don't think they'll ever do it. To go back to your analogy of a murderer,
Yep.
you know, there's these people that are in prison for murder today that will never give up the location of the body for the healing of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys are never going to come forward and admit that they lied. They're probably going to stick to their guns. They better not do it publicly. I'll say that, because I'm prepared to go to court. My next move is not a war on social media. My next step is the courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they won't say a word. I don't know. It's the ball's in their court though, and it's going to be addressed, because I've been run through the ringer. My reputation has, and my business. How much business did I potentially lose because people think that I'm unethical on it?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting. I mean, you know, whether it's jealousy or you know, sometimes people convince themselves, you know, that there's no possible way that somebody can be that successful. Like you see that not just in our space, but I'm just saying in life and in business, like they have to be cheating, they have to be doing something that's cutting corner. There's no possible, and it's denial in their own right. But you know, I wonder, just even with this case, Don, you know, with these ex-business partners, it's like it's pretty easy to prove the fence thing, right? Like they're not there. Like again, with technology, for good or for bad, like I can drive along your road on your farm and be like, there's no fence here.
Well, I think it's a transparency thing that, you know, we all feel entitled to, and I said we all, just, you know, deer hunters in general. Like, and I guess it's fair, because it's like, you know, hey, if you're going to sit there as an authority in the hunting industry, you know, and call your business the real world, you know, then if there's accusations or things that people are like, well, but there's fences involved and there's, you know, potentially genetics involved here, it's like it almost forces the hand here. And who knows, Chris Brackett may be the reason that, you know, we can all thank him someday for be like, thanks for talking shit, because now we get to bring it all out on the table and
air it all out,
air this out once and for all. And frankly, dude, us coming to see the farm would put it to rest for me. Absolutely. I mean, it's not
that you have to prove anything to us.
No, it's not a complicated thing for me. It's like, if you're offering, I'm like, hey, we could go walk the farm, and off season, nothing's off bound. And I'm like, absolutely, I'd love to help air that out.
Well, I think you, and again, not that maybe I just have missed it in the past. I mean, I think you talking about that perimeter fence against your neighbor, like that's a very open and truthful thing. Like there's probably a lot of people in our industry producing content that have similar things to that for sure will not want to be transparent about it.
Let me ask you this, and I'll understand if the answer is maybe not exactly even what you want it to be. Was your transparency on fences, whether they be perimeter or diversion fences, was that, have you always been, like, from day one, were you like as transparent as you are now? Or was it kind of a, well, let's try this first and just see if it even does anything, and then then maybe I'll try it on a few clients' properties type of thing? Has your transparency with that increased over time, do you think, or not?
I think I've been transparent all along. And to go back in time, you know, when I was a kid, I was one of those kids that was picked on a lot. I felt like I was looked down upon. And for much of my childhood and even as a younger adult, I felt like society as a whole looked down upon me, like I was not as good as other people. And then as I gained some notoriety in the hunting industry, I started having people, and particularly young people, looking up to me. And it's a big journey from being looked down upon to being looked up to. And I didn't always handle that transition the best. I had a chip on my shoulder a lot, because I was still the kid that was being picked on. I wasn't the man that was being looked up to. And that chip remained on my shoulder for a long time. But I've tried to, I think I'm probably different than just about anybody in the hunting industry. I don't hide my faith, and I try to be as transparent as possible, because I know there's a lot of young people out there that are going through tough situations, like, and even worse than what I did when I was young. And what I want to be, people look up to me for advice on how to kill big deer. But more than that, I want to be a guy that young people can look up to and say, if Don Higgins can do it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be looked at as being people thinking that I'm better than anybody, because I don't. But literally, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I want to be that example for those kids that dream about being in the hunting industry.
Mm-hmm.
They think Don was born with a silver spoon and all this money, and he's had this land forever, and they don't realize the struggles. When my wife and I were first married, we were so dirt poor that we had our electricity shut off multiple times. We had our phone shut off multiple times. There was more than once I'd bring home a paycheck, and she worked too. We both worked, and we worked overtime and anything we could. But there was more than once I'd bring home a paycheck, and there'd be a stack of bills on the table, and she had to choose which bills she had to pay, and versus buying groceries. And I didn't realize this until just Mother's Day this year. And my daughter shared this as we was talking, that when they were little girls and they'd go grocery shopping with my wife would have to carry a calculator up and down the aisles. And every time she put something in the cart, she added the price, because she might only have $20 to spend for the week or whatever. And she wanted to make sure she didn't get up there to the checkout and be short of money. So, and I didn't even realize she was doing that. So we came from very humble beginnings, and I've tried to remain humble, and I've tried to always be honest. And that's why when I had those classes on my farm, we went right to the diversion fence. And I showed those people what makes this blind so special is that these deer have to come up around that end of the fence to get to this food plot. And I'm not going to debate ethics, because we've all got different ethics. And I know there's people listening to this today that think that's not ethical. Well, that's their choice. It goes back to, I'm very opinionated. I'll give anybody that. I mean, you guys have all heard me rant about crossbows and mechanical broadheads, but I respect other people having a different opinion. And for example, I've sit in my own farm, in my own blinds, with people that have had a crossbow in their lap with a mechanical broadhead on the arrow. And I never, ever even brought it up. That's their choice. Now, my opinion's totally different than theirs, but that doesn't mean I'm in any place to be dictating opinions to anyone else. So I don't think I've ever tried to hide the fact that there's a fence there. I mean, it starts at the road. Anybody can see, the end post there at the road.
Right.
I think transparency is probably, and sometimes I've got friends that tell me sometimes I say too much. And maybe on this podcast I've said too much.
No.
But I think it's the transparency that sets me apart from the rest of the hunting industry. And I don't claim to be better than anybody. God didn't make me any better than he made anybody listening to this. But I'm an open book.
Well, dude, we're all trying to, like, even me leading up to this podcast here, I had to really sift out, and I still don't know how we feel about some of these, if you're going to call them issues. It's like, so we talk about fences, and it's like, okay, so all right, fence. And so in my mind, I'm like, all right, so we get the 3 types of fences we talked about. I'm like, you would pose a situation where you have a neighbor who, let's say he's even illegally baiting deer across the fence and shooting them, breaking the law, doing something that's hurting what you're trying to do on the property. Most people that I've posed that to are like, okay, I get it. I don't like it, but I can understand why you would have to put a fence up for that. I understand it. So it's like, all right, cool. So, well, what about if, and I don't know what the next scenario is here. So how far can we justify, the use of, and I'm just picking on fences at the time here. Is it one side? Is it 2 sides? At what point do we start? Is it walls of brush, or is it man-made fences? Like, where do we draw the line to say I don't feel right about it right now, right at this point, or bait,
and
or whatever weapons, whatever it is, it's like, so we all, I think transparency is the only way you kind of get to the root of how we all feel about these things,
Yeah, it's just open discussions.
We're all going to agree, but that's fine. We don't have to agree on it. There's no 2 people on the planet that's going to agree 100% of the time.
Sure.
But, on the fences on my farm, I did I took Onyx here a while back, and this was before I added acreage, and I traced the entire property line on my property. And then I figured out, and I got the total linear feet, and then I traced where the fences are. And if you had a square property, let's just say it's 40 acres, 160, whatever it is, it's a square property, and you had a fence down one side of that square, just one side, 25% of your perimeter is fenced.
Yep. Simple math.
Well, when I did the math, 17% of my perimeter had a fence on it. 17%. Today, my farm's even bigger, so that number is even smaller today.
Right.
And that just kind of puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
Well, Don, I mean, thinking it kind of on topic, off topic, you know, if there's definitely there's a sense of jealousy out there for people in anything when success comes into, it's kind of just human nature, I guess, to be jealous of somebody else's success as much as, you know, we want to support each other in that side. You know, if I look at Don Higgins coming from humble beginnings, you know, I look at myself even at 41, like I've evolved in my hunting career of like the I guess the efforts or the you know, tribulations that I would go through when I was in my 20s to just kill deer versus where I'm at now and how I see that. You know, I assume that you have evolved as well. I mean, was there a point in life, whether it was in your 30s or 40s, where you're like, I won't say do anything, but like I'm putting every effort out there to kill the biggest deer in the area, and that has evolved now at Don Higgins in his younger 60s?
There's absolutely no doubt about it. And, you know, one of the reasons I don't have an issue with bracket is because I'm going to guess around 10 or so years older than bracket.
Yes.
And if bracket would have done what he's done recently to me when I was his age 10 years ago, there'd be a whole different approach. I mean, we'd be butting heads. There'd be a social media war going on. So I think that you definitely mature as a person and as a hunter, and not only in the bucks that you shoot, but or the size of the bucks you shoot, but how you'll go about shooting them. I mean, I haven't hunted with a gun forever. In my younger days, I basically, my vice, if you will, back when I was younger, was just to basically go wherever I wanted. Now, I wasn't doing real blatant violations of the law, but if I had a place to park my truck and I could walk from that truck, I was going wherever I wanted to. But it was a different world back then.
Absolutely.
It was nothing like it is today.
Yeah.
I'm talking 40 years ago, you know, when I was 20 or 22 years old or whatever. Yeah, I'm parking my truck here and I can walk over there, and
same.
Even when I was younger, I mean, dude, it's like it's a totally different world from like 15 years ago.
Agree.
Yep. So, but I think it's I just try to be relatable to these young guys. I mean, I get letters every week because we answer questions on the Chasing Giants podcast, so people are sending them in, and the Amish especially will send them in via written letter. And these young Amish kids are, you know, and when I go to an event, you know, they're all lined up to talk to me, and that, and I have a responsibility to be real, not to look down on anyone. I don't look down on Brackett. I mean, I wish him the best. In fact, whenever Brackett goes off on me, I've had screenshots of his stuff shared with me and stuff. Basically, I just say a short prayer for him and his wife. I wish them nothing but blessings, and I move on. I couldn't have done that probably even 5 years ago, to be honest. 5 years ago, we'd have been butting heads. And I've just got a piece about me that, you know, I'm getting some things off my chest today, but it's not things that keep me up at night anymore. There's way more important things in life than shooting big deer. And, you know, those that have followed my podcast know that a couple of years ago, my daughter was battling cancer. And well, you talk about hitting home and a real eye opener. That'll put your priorities in order pretty quick.
Absolutely.
And I'm just grateful for you guys that you've given me the chance to get this off my chest. I had somebody ask me, I haven't shared with very many people, just a couple family members that I was coming on and I was going to open up and say some things that hadn't been said. And they said, why don't you say it on your podcast? Why don't you use the opportunity to drive traffic to your podcast? And my reply was, well, on my podcast, I think all the listeners are pretty much already on my side. I need to go elsewhere where people have heard bad things and they either believe those or they don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
And that's the audience that this message needs to get out to. And, I don't know how many people end up listening to this podcast. I'm guessing it'll be in the tens of thousands.
I would assume it's going to be a lot.
Well, I just hope that nobody gets the idea that Don Higgins thinks he's better than anybody else, and that he's got a property surrounded by a high fence with one opening that he sits on, and that he turns loose captive deer, because none of that is true.
Well, I would say, per your little sermon quote earlier about the staying silent and avoiding the conflict side of things, the last time, I don't know if it was the exact last time, but one of the last times we had you on was, I would say, maybe reactive to the point of Eberhard being on this podcast. And I think one of the things that we had talked about was, just like this one, Don, Jared and I try to stay very unbiased in our podcast, right? We want the guests to have the floor, and we want them to feel unimpeded by our opinions, essentially. And so I think in that podcast, Eberhard had made slide comments at like you or Drury or somebody, basically like, hey, if you took them from where they're at and you dropped them off where they couldn't hunt themselves out of a wet paper bag, essentially. And, that had stirred up a lot of things. Like it came out, and, and we have great respect for John in the way that he hunts. Like if I'm 70 years old and can climb a tree like a squirrel, like I will be ecstatic at that point. And at the same time, like we caught a lot of crap for it, right? Of people saying, well, Don, like you should stand up for him. And I'm like, I do know Don. And at the same time, like I want John, that's the kind of the cool thing about our podcast, is I want John to feel unimpeded by me knowing Don or Mark Drury to say exactly what he thinks, right? Because then the whole point is for the listeners to be like, whoa, wait a minute here. Like, that's a bold statement. Like I've watched what Don says or what Mark Drury says, and I don't think that's true. And so, we've taken a very definitive approach to not trying to bias the guest in our podcast to feel like they have to say anything different. Thus, same with this one. I told you, we both had the conversation back and forth of like, let's just have it wide open. Let's just air it out. Where nobody's going to be critical of things that you're saying. We want you to feel, it's a safe zone.
And with that, I think we shoulder the responsibility of allowing both sides to be heard. So we couldn't let, Brackett come on and say what he said and then tell you no. Like that would be crazy. That would be crazy. And I just detest, like we do, like you said, we get some negative feedback saying that we platform people, like, and that's a term, like we're giving people a platform to say these things that are disagreeable or whatever. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like the sole criteria is that I'm interested to hear what you have to say and what other people have to say. And like, unless it's all said and we have it, the only way it could be better is if everybody was on the same podcast or at the same table at the same time, then we could really flesh it out, but that gets logistically challenging. But
Well, you guys have been fair to me. I don't have a single complaint with you. Now, some of your guests have said some things that I think are not accurate, but you've given me the platform to address anything that was said. And I've been on a lot of different podcasts. I think you guys do a great job. I was on one not very long ago where I wondered if I was even going to get to talk. So
yeah.
I think you guys have done a very fair job, and that's why I wanted to air it here. You guys got a good audience, and it was just with Brackett just being on, it was just the perfect opportunity. And I'd had a gut full, and I don't want to turn it into a social media bashing session. I'm not going to. If it goes anywhere from here, it's going to a courtroom.
Yeah.
That's not in my hands any longer. I've got the truth out now, and it can go where it will. I mean, the biggest disappointment for me with Brackett is that he claims to be a Christian, and the Bible's very clear about how two Christians should address any conflict they have with each other. And he's not done that. Now, it's not my place to judge him or anyone else. That's totally, his deal. Eberhard, it's very clear that he doesn't have Jesus in his heart. And I'm not looking down on him, because I'm telling you guys, for a lot of years I didn't. You've never had a person on your podcast, and there's not a single person listening to this that wasn't a bigger piece of crap human being than I was when I was younger. I got into enough trouble for 3 people, but I eventually saw the light and got on the right path. And in recent years, my faith has been a big part of that. And with your faith, well, a human tendency is seeing is believing.
Mm-hmm.
You see something and you believe it's true. Faith is totally different. The more you believe, the more you see. It's like God reveals himself, the stronger your faith is. And I didn't understand it. I feel like I've been a Christian for decades, but it's only been in recent years when I put some things in his hands and walked away and trusted him. And one of them was this situation with ex-business partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I let him do his thing. And it's so amazing. And I just hope that Chris can get to the point, because I was where he was at one time. I was a bitter person. I was jealous of other people in the industry, and I bashed them. But I hope I've got past that point. I hope I'm setting a better example today for young hunters than I once did. And I just want everybody to know I don't look down on anyone.
It's a weird place, and I mean, you talk to Chris more than I do, but I still communicate with Chris a lot, and it's the commonalities are kind of weird when those discussion points, like you're inferring there, Don, like you and Chris not having like the kind of one-on-one conversation is like, first of all, underlying, like you're both whitetail fanatics. And also underlying, you're both habitat fanatics. And one thing that Jared and I have really picked up on this podcast is we talk to enough people that are habitat and deer habitat fanatics that there's a million ways to slice this pie, especially depending on where you're at. Well, geographically, you and Brackett are not far from each other. Like there's a lot of common denominators where I'm like, man, if Don and Chris were at a table, those guys could probably talk for 6 hours about deer management and strategy and habitat. And at the end of it, you guys have both been around the block, but learned a little something from each other. Maybe you don't agree on everything, but definitely there'll be things that you do or he does differently that you're like, huh, that's interesting. Like I could probably look at that and maybe at some point, or you know what, Chris, I've tried that and here's why it doesn't work. But I think to your point, like, and maybe this is just how society is anymore, right? It's why I personally hate social media so much, is like just things can be laid out there, and even with us, sometimes we'll say stuff and people will take it out of context, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's not really how I meant it. Like I do want to have a debate and discussion about it, which I believe is healthy.
Well, and we do it to ourselves. He put out a 30-second clip of a full-length podcast. It's like that's all you get from it.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, wait a minute, that was out of context. Here's the full length. So,
well, and also with Chris, it's like I think you guys are both believers, right? So you have an underlying, there should be some commonality there, but also, you guys have very different personalities too, and even Chris knows. Like, and I've told him, I'm like, dude, I can't take you sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to know how to handle certain people. It's just like, hey, you might have your favorite bull, and he's in this pen, and it's like he's great, and I love him, but I know not to like do this around him.
Yeah, I push him on the head a couple times, and he's getting worked.
You got to know how to handle each other. That's how that's how we stay in our own quarter. So yeah, well, go ahead, Don.
I think social media has been one of the best things that ever happened, and one of the worst. It's probably ruined more relationships that would not have been ruined had it not been for social media. If people were face to face talking, and I just, I know that I'm a lot different person today at 62 than I even was at 55.
Yeah.
And so when I look at people like Chris Brackett, I think, that was me 10 years ago. So it's easy for me to forgive and overlook.
Well, it's an important spot that you can admit that too, right? I mean, for many people, they can't admit that, that there was a shell of themselves before, that they're a lot different that they were. And honestly, for better or worse, like people harbor a lot of things. Like there's people that I know that I'll run into and they'll say, well, you said this 5 years ago on one of these podcasts, and they don't like me for it, and I'm like, well, honestly, I don't even remember saying that. It's just I think that's one thing that I do try to encourage when we have people, Don, you influence a lot of people. Chris hears a lot of people. Lee Lacoste, Bomar, all these people talk to a lot of people. Is I'm like, man, I may walk away from this table and be like, man, I had a great conversation with Don. But if somebody asked me tomorrow what we talked about specifically, I'd be like, oh, we kind of jumped all over the place. But a lot of listeners hang on our words very heavily. And so, almost to the point of like a gospel type of thing. And so when I run into them and they'll say, man, I really disagree on you saying this. And I'm like, huh, like I'm trying to think of how I said that in context, but to them, they've taken that thing to heart, and they really emotionally get tied to it. So that's a big responsibility that I think we have in our own roles, for better or worse, like you said. And I was kind of too, like I considered myself a really athletic kid growing up, but I was smaller and I got picked on a lot. And like, that was a weird thing for me coming, as I grew up, to be like, how do you ever shake that? I wasn't an angry kid growing up. I avoided conflict a lot, I would say. And so like, even now I take it as more of an advantage where I just shake it off. I try to just turn the other cheek, per se.
He's got me to bodyguard him now. So
yeah, you just can't take a punch to the face. I got to take the punch if it comes. But yeah, that's the kind of pieces that, you end up recognizing within yourself even.
Well, even podcast, I know that I've had to learn to really pick my words carefully, because people take everything so literal.
Oh, I know.
Like when I say, human intrusion is the biggest killer of a property. Well, they think you never step foot anywhere ever.
Yep.
Well, the human intrusion thing is really for the sanctuary, your sanctuary, the bedding cover. That doesn't mean you can't go work your food plots or mow your access lane or whatever it is you need to do. Yeah, there's going to be human activity. And so I'll say, well, I went out and I mowed my clover fire breaks this week. Well, what about you? You said no human intrusion. Isn't that human intrusion? Yeah, you're taking it literally,
Yeah.
And when the conversation is one way, like the listeners of this podcast, they can't reply to whatever we're saying when we're saying it. It just leaves the door wide open for misunderstandings.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, and it is whether it's the shorts that take it in those pieces, or us just having a discussion, which is what we love about this. Is we typically aren't, and I think this podcast probably demonstrates it really well. We're not necessarily hey Don, well, what's your favorite food plot, or what's your favorite place? Like it's very much an open discussion, which does leave a lot of our listeners hanging to be like, oh, I wish you would ask this, or I wish we would have
just got
dove in
no
deeper.
Pun intended. We got real world issues here that are a little bigger sometimes than strategy. It's like we got that part pretty much down. It's
it's the other things that come along. So it's just part of it. HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Pure Wildlife Blends.
Man, what a critical component just to everything that we talk about, especially during these off-season months. We're looking at and developing these different farms and trying to improve them from year to year. And whether that's food plots or different switch screenings or bedding areas, they all require a dedicated and thoughtful seed blend.
Yeah, so obviously Pure Wildlife Blends being Jeff and Jen Sturgis, we've built a great relationship with those guys. And really what we're seeing is a true testament to them picking the best varieties for these mixes. In fact, we're leaning on clover a lot more. The perennial plot power that those guys do was one of the best clover plots I've ever seen. From December to March, we had more deer in a single clover plot than I've ever seen. A lot of these sheds coming from that plot or right around it. Again, just a true testament to what these guys are creating at Pure Wildlife Blends.
No doubt. And so if you guys are looking for just a workhorse seed that the deer will really use the way that you want them to use it, you can use promo code HUNTR, HUNTR, for a discount on the Pure Wildlife Blends website. Don, can I ask you, and it's totally okay if you don't want to answer this. This is kind of like if it's personal or you don't think it's going to like benefit to the conversation at all, but I am curious about like your history with Real World. And I know there were some, the partners that I guess you guys had disagreements with and stuff. Obviously, if that's purely personal and it's like you want to leave it at that, then that's fine. But is there anything that's like you learned through that experience, or that you want to share about what happened with the growth of Real World or the transition of business partners throughout that you think would be beneficial to the conversation?
Well, I think one thing that's beneficial for every listener out there, and especially young guys, and when I say young, I'm talking anybody under 50.
Yes.
So I'm not just talking to teenagers or 20-year-olds, but there's never been a better time in my lifetime to start a business.
Yeah.
And I told both of my daughters, neither one listened to me, by the way, but I told both of them when they were in high school that if you really want to get ahead in life, forget college, start a business, because business owners are where the money's at. And I really see that on my consulting visits. These guys that I'm visiting their properties, they're not living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of them have a cabin, a hunting cabin that's nicer than my home. And my home's a brand new home just built in 21.
Yeah.
But these guys, I mean, they've been very successful at business, which has opened the door. Sure, if you got your heart set on being a doctor or something like that, yeah, you got to go to college. But if your goal is to make a lot of money so you can chase your hobbies or whatever, then you need to start a business. And there has never, ever been a better time in my 62 years on this planet to start a business than right now. My daughter and son-in-law right now are building a house and getting contractors just to come and do a job and do a good job. And we had the same thing when we built our house in 21. The door is wide open for people to start businesses, and these business owners are the ones that are making really good money. They're making more money than attorneys. They're making more money than your average doctor. That would be my advice to anyone. And as far as not ducking the question, I mean, when it comes to real world, I think what happened was me and my former business partner, we got along great for 10 years. I mean, we didn't have hardly a disagreement for 10 years, but we was doing it kind of part-time on the side. It wasn't our full-time gig. We had other jobs. And at the 10-year mark, it had grown to the point where we could quit our jobs. And I think the stress of not having a weekly paycheck.
Yeah.
I think we should have hired a full-time person about a year earlier, to help fulfill orders, answer the phone, things like that. I think there was just a lot of different things that come together. And I'm not about to bash him. I wish him nothing but the best.
Sure.
I literally showed up at his house a few months after the split up and everything, and apologized to him in person for my part in the whole deal. I told him that I would be willing to help him any way I possibly could. Just don't hesitate. Let me know if I can do something for you. He didn't have any desire for that, and that's totally fine. It's his business. I just think there was some bitterness on his side that was out of control, and I think he knows what he did. I'm not going to sit here and bring up a bunch of things.
Don, not to interrupt you on that, and again, I don't need to know the details, or if you don't want to say it, you don't want to say it, but like that mark right there, did you buy him out of the business, or how was he displaced, I guess?
Well, he refused to sell to me.
Okay.
He wouldn't let me buy him out, so he found another party to come in and
gotcha
and buy his. We were 50-50 owners, but at that point, I had made a deal with the new buyer that I wasn't going to be 50-50 owners again. He was going to sell me 10% of the 50 he was buying, so I became a 60% owner.
Okay.
And that's how that played out.
So he did receive adequate compensation at that time for his 50%.
Yeah. And he's the one that set the selling price, so he got the price he was asking, and I wish him the best.
Interesting. But there were, did he not want to sell? Is that why there were hard feelings?
Well, he wanted me to sell to him.
Okay.
But he wasn't making what I thought was a fair offer to me to leave. In fact, I thought that I would be the one leaving, to the point that I went out and got my real estate license. Well, we was butting heads for about 6 months before we got this resolved. And I went out and got my real estate license thinking that I was no longer going to have real world to deal with. And, it just went back and forth. We each hired attorneys. There was a third independent attorney trying to be a mediator. And it just ended up that he threw out a price to sell. And he said, I'm willing to take this price for my half, or I will give you this price for your half.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that price was cheap enough that I said, okay, I'm buying you out. There was no negotiation, no.
I'll take it.
I'm buying you out, taking you. Well, then he started backpedaling a little bit, and then he refused to sell to me. But he found this third party. And
when was this year-wise?
It would have been 2018.
Okay.
And here's, I feel really bad about going back and digging this stuff up and rehashing it.
Yeah, I'm sorry we keep bringing it up.
Well, I'm trying to keep it purely on the business side, not personal stuff between you and those guys.
The one important point that I do want to make, though, is that these accusations of me with the high fences and the captive deer did not happen prior to that split up.
Right.
I mean, on social media, nowhere was I getting accused of that locally.
That's the origin.
It was only at that point where this crap started coming out. And that's what I want to clear up. Those are all false accusations.
Yeah. Can I ask this way? Were you guys butting heads over a direction the company was going to go? Was there a certain business activity that prompted you two to feel like there was a separation about to happen there?
Well, I think I didn't have any hard feelings towards him. In fact, me and a couple of associates did our best to talk him into just settling down and sticking with it and remaining partners as we had been. But he was adamant that was not going to happen. And I think I'll take some responsibility, because I think one of the things that really bothered him was the fact that I can't keep my mouth shut on political matters. And if you followed me at all on social media, I'm a staunch conservative. And I don't hide the fact of what I stand for and what I'm against. And he did not like that because he felt like I was driving away potential customers.
Got it.
And that did not set well with him. And I totally understand his point. He had a valid point, but I'm not going to change who I am to make a dollar.
Yeah.
I think that I live in the greatest country that's ever been on this planet, and I could never do what I've been able to do anywhere else.
No, I agree.
And this country was founded on certain freedoms that are in jeopardy today, and were in jeopardy back in 2018. And I felt it was important to stand up for what I believe in. And his views and mine they aligned. I mean, his views are straight in line with what mine are. I was just way more vocal about it, and he was way more quiet about it. And my opinion is that you can have the best values in the world, but if you're not willing to stand for them, what good are they?
Yep, agree.
And that's the approach I took. And some of my social media posts, I think, really bothered him, and he wanted to distance himself from that.
I guess I would have two comments. One personal, in that Jared and I own this business 50-50, as well as some other businesses, but I had a 50-50 business partner. I would say I probably had a similar run-in of hey, it's you or me type of thing. And I'm fine either way, I guess. And I just talked to him before this podcast. Not that we're, I would say, as close as we were before then, but there were, I would say similarly, where we were very, very close. And then as it neared that end, inevitably there were tensions of
I can speak to that.
Yeah, it's me or him. And I don't hold any bad will against him. I don't, even with the tensions, I never hated the guy. We just saw different directions, or we were coming to a different head in it. And honestly, I think I was probably in the same breath like you were, Don. I was like, hey, it's fine if it's me. I'll go do something else.
And on both sides, I think you guys realize even flaws with yourself.
Absolutely.
You're like, hey,
I knew there were.
Yeah, and I've probably pointed them out to you since. Be like, hey, dude, this thing you do is kind of like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But on the other, and so, yeah, you just come to a point, and some people, I think, ultimately, even though you guys just like you guys did, made something awesome over the course of 10 years and, wherever your guys's was. At the end of it, it's like if you can come to terms to separate from that, you're probably better on the other end from a personal standpoint, just to be friends rather than business partners.
Now, I will say in terms of real world, and I'd like to think even in terms of my Stonerow Media marketing business of where I am now, and this isn't any disrespect to your old business partner, because I may have met him, but I don't know him, is I don't necessarily think real world would be where it is if Don Higgins walked away in 2018. And I mean, I'm not fluffing Don here. Like I've got no reason, Don and I know each other. We're very cordial, but I say that in all honesty, in that there's probably a lot of people who have used real world beans or products or whatever that have done so because we know Don Higgins and his track record.
That's fair.
Is that fair? Don, you don't have to say that's fair. And
my former business partner brought some real strengths to the company. I've never met anyone in my life with a stronger work ethic. I mean, this guy will work from, he'll work till 2 or 3 in the morning and get back up at 6 and be going until he goes to bed at 2 or 3 o'clock the next morning. He had a fantastic work ethic. I think if I could find a fault, it would be that he didn't realize that different people brought different strengths to the team. And his strength and my strength and values were different.
Yeah.
And combined, they made success.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he shortchanged me a little bit on what I brought to the team, but I can't speak for him. I mean, I think he's a decent human being. I think he's made some big mistakes about the lies he spread about me. I wish he would correct them, but I've said many prayers for him and his family and his wife and his daughter. And I just wish that we could be friends again. I know that's probably never going to ever happen, but
never know.
It is what it is. We just move on.
Yeah, and the pathways are the pathway.
And Don, you really do believe that that's like the sole source of misinformation about as far as fences and stuff on your farm?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it.
Really?
That's a screenshot I shared of the social media comment posted. That is, I've got stacks of that stuff.
That was a public comment that was made that you read earlier?
Absolutely.
Oh,
yep.
I thought there was a message. I got it.
Yeah.
No,
and that was on.
It was a comment under
July 15th, 2022.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, and I mean that is the yeah, and again, it is what it is, right? I kind of look at it as the past is the past, and but to your point earlier, the fact that cloud, thus this podcast even happening, or specifically on this topics, like hopefully Don would have came back anyways, but specifically on these topics is that cloud continues to loom, and so
well, it's because things like fences become more and more a part of the conversation. I think a lot of people had no idea that was happening, and so even guys like us were like, hey, fences are coming, here's why, here's all these things. As those topics continue to be relevant, I think you have, again, whether it's jealousy, misinformation, just rumors, it comes up again, and your name gets thrown in the pot. So I can understand why. I
mean, are you seeing, not necessarily your own clients, Don, but I mean, through, I guess, conversations or people asking questions, like, I mean, are there people fencing 3 sides? Like, are we that far into this thing?
I know of only one property of any of my consulting clients. I only know of one property that's 3-side fences, and that's in Michigan.
Okay.
Of all places.
Yep.
Everybody else, I don't even know if there's a 2-sided.
And I'm not even saying your clients. I'm just wondering, like, because it seems like I've heard, at least, I mean, again, I haven't physically seen them with my eyes, but I've heard plenty of people say, oh, I know this property's got 2 on one side and a river on the other. Like there's one way in, one way out type of thing. Not from a hole, but from a side standpoint. It does seem like there's more and more, I know Bobby wrote us because we talked about it too, but I've seen the Whitetail group guys. I've seen them do it and advertise it. And I've seen, other people, and I don't know if Brackett sent us a picture and he's like, hey, here's one that's got fences on, you're at the corner. Like there's the fences going either way. And so, I mean, there's definitely more and more of them happening, and I guess I look at like even, like your piece you did, I'm sure before you said, well, I'm going to put a fence up, you probably thought, what else can I do here? Right. That seems like a common step of like, what else can I do here besides that?
Yeah. When that neighbor that I had the issues with first moved in, he moved in a modular home. So there was not a home there before he got there. When he moved in there, I went down and I volunteered to do some work for him in exchange for exclusive hunting rights, because I knew that could be a problem.
Yeah.
And I still had my tree business at the time. I went and I planted some trees in his yard, some shade trees and such. And then I took my skid loader down. I moved some dirt for him in exchange for hunting rights on 5 acres. I mean, I was only gaining 5 acres. It was an important 5, don't get me wrong. And when I got my first call that the guy wanted to track a deer onto me, I'm like, where are you hunting at? Because there's nothing but wide open ag fields. I mean, did you shoot this deer 3 miles away and you chased him across the wide open field? I mean, where are you hunting at next to me? And he told me on that 5 acres. And I'm like, well, who gave you permission?
Yeah, exclusive.
Well, yeah. Well, as it turned out, the guy that owned the place
wasn't even the owner.
No, it wasn't the owner.
Oh.
No, he doesn't hunt. He was just letting others.
Oh.
Well, it turns out that the guy that shot this first deer that came on me, and he's had several hunters since, but the guy that shot this first one was dating this guy's sister.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And that's how he got his foot in the door.
Mm-hmm. What's her sister look like?
Right next to Don Higgins' property. I mean,
well, there's been other issues that not with this guy, but that I could throw out there just because of the recognition. And I had to buy a piece last fall, not even connected to mine. And it was only 17 acres, I think. But it was a home site, had a home and barns and stuff on it, and an open cattle pasture, not hunting ground at all. But it was being advertised on Zillow as right next to me. And
I remember seeing the listing.
Yeah, so I ended up buying that just to keep somebody from coming in and pulling deer off of me.
Yeah.
And paid a premium because it was next to me.
You have to. Yeah, I mean, that comes with the territory. But
yeah.
Well, Don, I think, and I think kind of what you were asking there is like, and we're full transparency on the fences at this point. So I mean, how often are you? I'm not asking for a percentage or anything, but it's like, how often does it seem like you're prescribing fences as a part of a management plan? Is it common? I know you said 90% of people are open to it, but is it that frequent?
No, it's not near that frequent. It's probably, I did just as a guess, I'm going to say less than 25%.
And what are, I mean, obviously that's it's an extreme step, right? So like, what would you, what would be a common situation? I mean, you talk about your 5 acre situation there. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, is that typically it? It's like prescribed because of unresolvable neighbors, I guess is the best way I would describe it.
It's a matter of if we don't have a fence here and things continue on the track they're on, you're never going to be able to reach your goals. So anytime that I do a consulting visit for someone, I start by, I got a list of about 10 questions. And one of the questions is, what is your goals? And I want to make sure I can help them reach those goals. If I can, I'm not going to take their money and visit their property. But so I'm looking at their goal and can we achieve that goal? And sometimes in a situation, where you got a bad neighbor, I shouldn't even call him a bad neighbor. When you got a neighbor who's not on the same plan,
that's it, with
the same goals that you have, they're going to prevent you from ever reaching your goals. And I think a lot of these neighbor disputes would not happen if our state game agencies would just get on board with a quality deer herd across the state. I mean,
completely
the population level can be whatever they want it to be.
Right.
I mean, if they want it less than what it is today, fine, let's bring it down. But let's have good age structure and let's have good sex ratios and have a well-managed herd. And then I think we solve a lot of problems.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I've yet to talk to a state agency that's on that mindset. I would say the overwhelming amount are kill them all or kill as many as they can. With a lot of these, I just had a conversation this morning with Missouri and Jason Sumners, who's the head over there, the director. it was more EHD related, but, there's a lot of people that are just, Missouri's on a pathway of low numbers and young age structure, which, my wife was a former biologist for them. And I told her this morning, I said, hey, listen, I understand the theories and the science behind CWD and going to lower populations and lower age structures. I will tell you flat out, even as a biologist, my goals are unacceptable to that. Like I'm just not. I understand the science, and I understand that may be the current thought process, but I'm unwilling to accept that low age structure has to be the end result, because it's completely against everything I'm trying to do in my entire life. So I get it. Right. But in there obviously with neighbor situations, there are those unresolvable issues where it's like, if this is your goal, what do you do? It's either that or sell the property. Right. I mean, that's kind of what it comes to.
Well, yeah, that mindset that Missouri has and other states as well is they're not going to be able to address it as they think they can, because they're just going to force landowners to take matters into their own hands.
Agree.
And when a guy fences 3 sides of his property and that property becomes a sanctuary and he's only hunting the front side where it's open, there's going to be an overpopulation of does, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about a disease, or a situation that's ripe for disease.
Mm-hmm.
It's overpopulation. I mean, Mother Nature is going to address things her way if we don't handle it. And I think these game agencies don't understand that a lot of their regulations takes control out of their hands.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
it forces it into the hands of private individuals who are going to go to extreme measures.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, well, I look at, we talked about it earlier.
How can they not get that?
I know. You talk about Texas and the Midwest being, Texas is a great example. It's 96% privately owned, privately held, right? And sure, there's a myriad of restrictions and regulations and all this, but ultimately it's like most of Texas has, first of all, they have a lot of fences, right? But it's privately controlled, especially in the areas that are actually able to be deer hunted, and the state really has no say on what the heck happens there.
Yeah, and I don't think we're ever going to get to Texas as far as having properties totally enclosed, because in the Midwest there's just not large properties.
Yeah, we're too
like
small
parcel
sizes. Mm-hmm.
But I do see a lot of fences, 1, 2, 3 sides of a property being fenced in, depending on what's around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's.
Do you think there's an end to that, Don? I mean, do you think it's funny? People normally are asking me that. It was what was his name? It's from Ed Mountain Tough. He was asking us that question. Do you see an end? Do you see a solution to this? But I'll pose it to you. Do you think that any of these game agencies will at least realize the dynamic that's happening there and try to make a course correction or an adjustment at some point?
I seriously doubt it, and just based on my experience with the state of Illinois, the politics of these states, a lot of times ties the hands. I mean, you could have a biologist running in charge of the deer herd for whatever state, and his hands, no matter what state it is, his hands are going to be tied to some degree.
Yeah.
That they're going to pass laws that he's going to have to follow. And I think it's sad that we've gotten away from allowing biologists to manage our big game herds. And instead we're letting a bunch of bureaucrats who've never been in the woods. They have no interest or no knowledge of what they're passing laws about. And yet they are dictating the future of our big game herds. I think it's a sad situation.
Well, and there's some enablement there, unfortunately, and I'll pick on Illinois for a second here, is like we recently were watching a lot of the politicians back, the agricultural side, which is huge. It's Illinois, right? But back that side of like, hey, deer damage is an issue. We need to reduce populations. Well, the first thing they grabbed a hold on is, also, let's talk about CWD and the fact that we need to reduce deer herds because of CWD. Well, that was teed up, maybe inadvertently, by the DNR. And so now all of a sudden you've got these politicians and you got the...
How so? How was it teed up by
the
DNR?
The DNR is the one who's saying we need to reduce populations because of CWD. We need to reduce populations because of CWD. So all of a sudden the politicians then pair that with the fact that there's crop damage and, quote, overpopulations to tie that together. And
it's easily weaponized. It's a perfect excuse to kill deer.
And the Farm Bureau carries a lot of weight, obviously, in Illinois. So they're just licking their chops at this thing and say, hey, by the way, it's not all crop damage. Talk about the CWD thing that they're already trying to reduce population. So we're just helping in the effort.
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden you created a perfect storm for the Illinois, Department of Ag to be like, we need to lower deer densities. So we should look at longer gun seasons. Where are we going to put sharpshooters in? Right? Like all of a sudden these things come into play and you're like, here we are.
Which is crazy because even that doesn't affect deer number. It only limits our ability to shoot deer. It gives people
can't realize
more tools to hunt bucks and lock up land and kick out axes. It almost is like you have to wonder if the people aren't dumb. It's like, can they realize that? And is it intentional? Are they intentionally trying to get deer populations to a point in some of these states to where it's like they can claim that hunting is no longer relevant because hunters don't want to kill deer?
I don't know.
Well, in Illinois, I mean, the politics of our state. I mean, known nationally as one of the most liberal.
It's blue.
Ridiculous. Yeah. They just passed a bill which becomes law on January 1, 2026 about the reintroduction of apex predators.
We just had this conversation.
Wolves, bears, mountain lions, passed by, a bunch of Chicago Democrats that don't know the first thing about wildlife management. And I don't know what the end goal there is, if they want to get rid of hunting and think these apex predators are going to control the deer herds or what. But, the solution is very simple, and I place a lot of the blame on the hunting community. In Illinois, the Farm Bureau is the most powerful lobby in the state.
Yes.
They dictate a lot of what goes on here. But if you could take the DNR, the Farm Bureau, legislators, and deer hunters and put them all at the table, I think there's solutions that would satisfy everyone at that table. I think the farmers and the hunters could find a solution that has a population at a level that both parties could live at. I think the DNR could also implement the regulations and oversee the regulations. I think the legislature could pass the needed legislation to get it all done. But the biggest wild card in that table is the deer hunters, because we can't agree on anything. You throw out any topic on social media, it doesn't matter what it is, and you've got people on every side of that issue and sides you didn't even think about. I know because I spent about 20 years of my life working for change for Illinois. I've been to Springfield and testified in front of the legislature on issues. I testified in front of Barack Obama when he was a state senator.
That's right.
That's how far back this goes.
Yeah.
But the issue of getting anything done that's appealing to deer hunters is that the deer hunters are so divided.
Yeah.
And nobody is willing to have an open mind and realize that a quality deer herd benefits everyone. We're not forcing people they can't shoot little bucks. We're not forcing them that you have to shoot a doe and you can only shoot does and giant bucks. We can have some well thought out regulations that benefits everyone, that satisfies everyone.
For sure.
But the hunters are the wild card in the bunch that can't get on the same page.
Well, and maybe even worse than that, fearfully, and I'm having a little bit of deja vu. I think we talked about this, Don, maybe 2 years ago. It's like the hunters, we want everything they're giving us. We want longer seasons. We want crossbows in the archery season. We want cell cameras. We want all these corn piles.
We loosely, right?
Generally speaking, yeah, most of those things hunters are going to vote for and say, I mean, dude, when they were talking about pulling out of Kansas, it's like, you had Bone Collector and those guys, everybody rallying like this, our hunter's right.
Don't take our bait away.
Don't take our, you know what I mean? It's a slippery slope. They're going to take away our rights. And I definitely hear that and I appeal to it, but it's like, do you realize that everything that we are asking for and that they're giving us is what's forcing the separation between a rich and poor class of hunting? It's literally the thing that's driving the divide.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I gave up after 20 years of wasting time driving to Springfield, different meetings with DNR, with legislators, with whoever. Um, it just it became so obvious to me that it was nothing but a waste of my time, and I just started focusing that time on my personal situation. I applaud anybody that's involved. I know Skip Sly is very involved in Iowa. Iowa's a different animal. Their deer hunters are
They're organized.
They're way more organized, and they're on the same page. They don't have the divide that we have here in Illinois, and I wish them the best. I mean, I hope they keep their non-resident limits. I hope they keep the crossbows out of the entire archery season, because really they're the last hope for quality whitetail herd in the nation.
It's an interesting spot. I've done a lot of work here recently with Safari Club International, and from an advocacy side, like from a hunting rights side and stuff, very, very involved, and doing a lot of really good stuff for us as hunters as a group in the United States. But when we break it down to like the whitetail side, like you got guys like Skip and Iowa Sportsman, but it's very fragmented. Ohio Advocates, Hunters Advocate of Ohio, we've talked about Michigan United Conservation Club. Like there's pockets, right? But none of those, to your point of separation, Don, none of those pockets have strength because they don't have numbers.
Well, it was interesting. We came across that Hunter Nation. Like,
yeah,
frankly, apparently they're a pretty powerful group. It was pretty influential with that the public land thing. I had never heard of them.
Pretty influential in the Sunday hunting in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know. I had never heard of them before that.
Yeah, so
it's like
they're there.
There are groups out there,
but fragmented, just like us as hunters. Like it's like what, and I get it. It's business too, right? Like even though these guys are all nonprofits, like there's a business aspect there, but it's like we're fragmented and like divided like that. We just don't have power. It's like you need something, whether it's Hunter Nation or an SCI or individually, and we've talked about this, the state-based groups, whether it's Iowa Sportsman's Club, Hunter Advocate. I don't know. What's Illinois now, Don? Is it Illinois Bowhunters? Is that like the group for advocacy?
To be honest, I don't even think there is a group anymore. In 2012, when the EHD outbreak just wiped out deer across the state and all the hunters were up in arms, we thought there was enough interest to start a new group with no back history, no bad history.
Yep.
And we started the Illinois Whitetail Alliance, and membership was free. We advertised. All we wanted was your email address so that we could send you legislative alerts.
Yep.
And we could not get 1/10 of 1% of the hunters to join a free organization.
That's so frustrating.
Why do you think that is, Don?
I think they're just all so divided, and they're also, they're apathetic. They don't care.
They don't care.
We take deer hunting super serious, and we think that the rest of the hunting community does too.
Right.
But they don't. We represent 1/10 of 1%.
Yep.
And if you had 1,000 deer hunters out there, there's like about 10 of the 1,000 that are serious as we are.
Sure. And see, the issue with that is
that's definitely true.
That's how the game agencies see it. Is they say, well, listen, you're the 1/10 of 1%. The rest of them all want this. Well, the 1/10 of 1% is the guy who will do everything and anything to preserve his quality of hunting experience. And so they're going to buy more land. They're going to get more leases. They're going to long lengths to make sure that happens. And all of the people that aren't doing that are losing access left and right, because of it. So even though they think that they're pandering to the large hunting public, the fact is those, I won't say all of them, but a large percentage of them, if hunting went away tomorrow, if deer hunting went away tomorrow, they'd find something else. They'd go fishing or they'd go watch football or whatever. And it would be a blip in their life of loss. There is a large portion of that I do think care about hunting, and they just don't have the great means, right? But that's the group who maybe they don't say it all the time, surely benefits from the work that 1/10 of 1% is doing, right? They're the guys who are, maybe they are hunting public, but it's against private, and they're killing 3 and 4 and 5-year-old
deer.
If
they love it that much too, eventually they, like we all did, we will find a way to get permission to buy property eventually, to secure a lease. Yeah, you'll find a way if you care.
And the other half of that will be gone. They'll be non-existent. And there'll be room at that point for those people to have leases and property, because the other half just falls off the face of the earth. They just find something else to do.
Yeah.
But we won't have the numbers then, which puts us at risk politically.
Yep, I couldn't agree more.
Just as it's a
that's why Don gave up 20 years ago.
It's a nasty cycle of it. We talk about it, and Don, I think you'll appreciate it. We say sometimes it's there needs to be an adult in the room, right? Like that large majority of hunting public, absolutely, they'll listen to this podcast and not agree with 90% of it, right? But the adult in the room stands up and says, I understand you don't agree with this, but I'm going to do it. In 10 years, this was Gary Alt in Pennsylvania. Gary Alt stood up and said, we're going to do this. 99% of people that were deer hunters in Pennsylvania said, kill him. We hate, who is this guy? Kill him. He's trying to, now.
Kill the guy, not the deer.
Right. Now we have the best buck in deer hunting that I think we've ever had. People say, well, I don't see 100 deer. Well, you're not supposed to see 100 deer during opening day. Like, that's not the point. But we have bigger bucks. We have a better age structure. We have a better sex ratio than we've ever had in the state of Pennsylvania. Gary Alt had to be the adult in the room and say, listen, here's what we're doing, and I don't care what you say. It's what's happening.
Is Gary Alt still the biologist in Pennsylvania?
No, he got run out years ago, but he had political immunity at the time when he did it.
Well, the discouraging thing about that, that whole deal, Don, was, and we had him on to flesh it out. It was really cool. It was really cool what happened.
He did it the only way he could, which was governor political immunity.
Yeah, and the intention was not let's grow big bucks. It wasn't like a group of hunters were like, we really want to see the quality of these deer improve. Like, that didn't happen at all. He basically had to drag them across the line. But the objective was, and the sole mission was, the governor tasked him with decreasing deer populations in the timbered areas in Pennsylvania so that the timber quality could improve. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so in order to do that, he had to convince guys to shoot more deer.
Yep.
And so he basically...
More does in particular. So he basically weaponized big bucks against hunters and said, if I can show you, I can convince you that this thing is possible. So, and also that he said, you can't shoot the first buck you see.
Mm-hmm.
It has to meet a certain antler criteria, which then, if guys were truly meat hunters, guess what? They shot does because they couldn't kill the first spike that came through.
So in a cool way, it's like, yes, now we live in a much better situation, but it's like it wasn't spurred on for reasons that we feel we can replicate from a deer hunter's position.
It was an indirect benefit.
What financial gain is somebody going to get? So if you can figure that out, you can put it in front of them, and then...
I think Iowa's done it.
What's that?
In that they're financially, I mean, I'm buying points every year. It might take 6 or 7 years at this point to go there, and it's worth it to me. Maybe. I'll pay you to eventually get access to go there and kill or hunt a deer of that quality.
Yeah, they've definitely monetized a quality deer herd better than any other state.
But if they blow it up, if they do non-resident landowner tags or crossbows in all the season, whatever, I probably am not nearly as willing to do that.
Sure.
And so your monetization will fall off. They know that.
Well, and the sad thing is Illinois was once better than Iowa.
For sure.
And they could be again if I was in charge, I could make it better in about 3 years.
Yeah.
What would you do, Don? How would you make it better?
Well,
you're wide open here, safe zone.
Okay. Well, the first thing I would do is I would limit non-residents. Yep. We can't just have them coming in and going to Walmart.
Yep.
And getting their tags. Like it or not, I've hunted other states where I had to draw tags. I've hunted other states where I bought them over the counter.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I applying to Iowa today? I'm applying to Iowa and I'm giving them money for a preference point because of the quality of their deer herd.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And we could make more money with a limited number of non-residents than we're making with these over-the-counter tags, because they can go over the counter and they can buy a $25 doe tag.
Yep.
An antlerless tag.
Yep.
And hunt until they shoot a buck and then go to Walmart and buy a buck tag.
Mm.
So I'm at least it was that way. I'm not up on it currently. I don't know if that changed or not.
If they even check it in. Like that's the other thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
So I would limit non-residents.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we got a 2 buck limit.
Mm-hmm.
And I would keep that 2 buck limit, but I would totally restructure it. So there would be an early season and a late season. The early season would start October 1 and it would go through the end of the first firearm season.
Mm-hmm.
And you're only allowed to kill 1 buck. So if you kill a buck in October with your bow, you're not killing one during the first firearm season.
Which is similar to Missouri. right? They do have that kind of set up correctly, although their rifle season is too early.
Yep. But they could not kill their second buck until they have tagged in at least one doe.
So there would be a bit of an earn a buck type there?
For the second one, yep.
Okay.
That would be two huge ones. The one that'll never ever happen is getting rid of the crossbows in archery season.
I was going to say I could fix it with one change.
Yeah,
that's
the last straw that broke the camel's back in Illinois.
I mean, if you did the first two, in theory, let the crossbows be, it still would be dramatic improvements, right?
It would be noticeable, but there's just too many young bucks getting shot with crossbows, and it turned every firearm hunter into a bow hunter.
It did.
Yeah.
No,
that was the big thing.
I agree. Yeah, I mean that's what we talk about that in Pennsylvania all the time. I mean we had one of the most World War III like opening day of gun seasons anywhere. I mean it was wild. It was nothing to count 200, 250 shots on an opening day, and since that's been put in play, guys are like, where's everybody at? Well, they already hunted for 2.5 months during bow season with a crossbow. They're done. They're just tired of it, and it's not a big deal to them anymore. And so now if you hear a dozen, 2 dozen, maybe at the most, you're lucky. Mm-hmm. And it's just because, everybody's out. They're done.
We literally have more pressure during our bow season than we do during our gun season now. Mm-hmm. And that was not the case. I mean, it used to be if you drove around opening morning of firearms season, there was trucks parked everywhere. There was orange and across the fields everywhere, hunters sitting in trees. And today it's not like that whatsoever. You can literally see more trucks on a Saturday morning in early November during archery than you can opening morning of gun season.
For sure. Yeah, no doubt. Well, and Don, our feeling on it is kind of the same as yours. It's just kind of like, it's almost not worth mentioning, but it's like, we all know, it's like, well, that obviously would fix it, but that battle seems long gone,
Yep. That's not ever going to happen, I don't think. I mean, the majority of bow hunters actually support crossbows.
Yep.
Because that's what they're using.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
And the DNR will just use that against us, and don't listen to these guys. They're radicals. We got way more people that want them than not.
Don, did you know that it would have been 2 years ago, there was a clip out there about you making a comment about comparing crossbows to, guys competing in women's sports, right?
It was on your podcast.
It was on our podcast.
It also made Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Did you know that Rogan picked it up and was talking about it?
No, I didn't.
You never knew that?
No.
Oh, I have to send it to you. He was talking to Adam Greentree, who's another, big bow hunter, I guess. And he commented, he's like, yeah, this guy was on there talking about the comparison that you made. So he saw it. So
it made its rounds.
Did he agree or did he disagree?
They agreed.
I think he agreed, yeah.
They agreed. Yeah, it made its rounds, you would say.
I caught some heat. Believe me, I caught plenty of heat about it.
That's been our only appearance on Rogan was you talking about that. So,
well, if we get this one out there, and you may have your second appearance.
Yeah, it's very possible. Well, listen, man. I guess before we wrap up, anything else? I feel pretty good about it.
We covered a lot of ground. I appreciate it, and I have no hard feelings towards anybody that I talked about today. I just want to get the truth out there.
Yep.
And I want to stop the lies, and that's my goal, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that.
I thought you did a nice job keeping it professional and strictly business in some cases. I know there's personal issues that anybody's going to have that, we're not here to air those out, but I appreciate the perspective, and I think, there's some time between now and then, but we'll definitely take you up on a visit. We'd love to see what you're talking about, and if nothing else, to get to visit with you. So,
I look at it as, like you said, there's personal issues that happen. I like to think of my wise 41 years that life's short, and harboring grudges definitely doesn't lengthen your lifespan for sure. That stress and that burden is not healthy for anyone, and there's too many things to enjoy out there and embrace than to just harbor on the bad things. So Yeah, I think that was a good way of laying it out, Don, and we appreciate coming on. I think we covered some other really good topics too along the way.
For sure. We somehow slipped those in. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but man, we appreciate you as always, and you know, I know our listeners do too, and appreciate the transparency because I do think it lacks in this industry for sure, and wish you nothing but the best, and hopefully you got your eye on a big one yet?
No, not big enough. Put it that way. I mean, I know there's a couple of nice ones, but I'm a little bit disappointed in what I've found thus far.
Yeah, we got some time here. Yeah, hopefully that tune changes in the next 6 weeks.
Well, that fall shift is coming on, so I got hopes for that.
You got dates, apparently. You said, hey, if within 48 hours of these dates, I expect something to show up.
Well, I've already found most of those bucks that will end up showing up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm going to have a shooter on the farm this year.
So, okay, not because we are going to wrap this up, but, you know, I've heard a lot of people talking, and we did too, about like the agricultural and the success that we're going to see hopefully from this season. A lot of people then immediately are tying that to, hey, I think we're going to see some of the biggest racks that we've ever seen. You feeling that way, or are you not seeing that?
Well, I think 2024 was a better antler growing season in the Midwest than 25, and the reason for it was the winter preceding 24 was a lot milder than last year. Not that we had a really rough winter, but we did have some stretches where there's some bad weather.
Yeah.
The other thing is the spring of 25 drug on. Planting season, like I mentioned, was a month late.
Yep.
The cool temperatures carried on later into the spring, where in 24 we got warm weather sooner. I don't think it's quite as good as 24. It's not a bad year by any means. It's probably average to slightly above average. There's definitely going to be some giants. I mean, you start talking millions of animals across numerous states. There's always going to be some giants. I think it'll be a good year. I don't think it'll be a great year. I think the management issues or regulation issues we've talked about on here are going to be felt. There's not going to be near as many older age class bucks. I think EHD in pockets like Southeast Ohio are going to take their toll. So it remains. I think there'll be some great bucks shot, but I don't know that it's going to be one of those banner years.
Are you going to do your daily rut updates this year?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I've done it for several years now, and I'm guessing I probably will. I usually don't decide until I usually decide about a week before and get a lot of feedback, and people actually know me from the rut report.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll probably do it.
I definitely enjoy them. It's you and
Winky?
Nope, visor guy.
Oh, Jay Gregory.
Yeah, you guys both do the rut reports, and inevitably we're all on the stand checking them. So I appreciate seeing those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, Don, we appreciate it, man. And again, if hopefully we get some rain here, but if not, our real world beans will probably bail us out of some jams at least early in the season and late in the season from the ponds.
The beans look good.
The beans look good. So, but yeah, we appreciate everything, man. Thanks for coming on and being so open and honest with us about it. And just stick on here real quick. I just want to make sure everything uploads.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you having me on, guys. Hope you have a great season. Stay safe and God bless.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Beast Broadheads.
Dude, Beast Broadheads. Man, we've been advocating for and shooting expandable, especially big expandable broadheads for years and years now. And it just seems like they just keep making them better and better. And ultimately, with the relationship we've forged with the Bowmars this past year, we're just super excited to be shooting the Beast Broadheads this year.
I mean, this broadhead it's the world's sharpest expandable broadhead out there. It has best penetration, and it's got bone avoiding technology. Ultimately, we want to create the most trauma possible on a deer when we release an arrow. The Beast Broadhead does that for us every time.
So right now you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, for a discount on anything on the Beast website. So definitely go check out beastbroadheads.com.
And awesome.
Ooh.
Don Higgins. Uncensored.
Uncensored for sure.
Yeah, well, we were just talking about on the wrap up there. They're appreciate Don's transparency, because I'm sure I could tell it wasn't easy. I didn't know about the lawyer thing either. Well, honestly, I didn't even know we were going to get into the business side of things, but obviously that being the origin. I guess, so I wasn't surprised by diversion fencing. I think a lot of people do that. I don't really have a beef with it. I mean, it's a strategy of killing bucks. I've talked before. I have an issue with perimeter fencing. I don't like it. I was surprised that he openly discussed his perimeter fence there.
You were?
Yeah.
Well, he's done that before. I wasn't surprised by that.
Yeah, I guess I didn't. And I don't know. I'm out of the loop on stuff. I guess I didn't know he had it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did for sure.
Okay.
For sure. I think he's been pretty open about that. In fact, he said he's taken 500 people. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that that's what I'm saying. I'm out of the loop. Like I'm glad he's been open and transparent about that before. It was somewhat. I mean, you heard me phrase the question. I'm like, hey, if I walk around the property, I'm not gonna see any fences. He's like, well, no, actually, you will.
You will. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and I mean, I get the reasoning. I don't know. Teach their own on that. Like I'm impartial to it. I don't like it. I wouldn't do it, but I get from a goal standpoint why you would.
Sure.
So it is interesting the accusations. Like to his point,
right?
You can't prove to me that I released does in the area.
Right. Well, and some things,
he was open about losing one.
Yeah. And some things, for better or worse, it's like, I don't know that can really be tested. It's like if the accusation is, did you release, either bred does or, just does from a high fence facility on your property? I mean, outside of lying, it's like, I think we got the answer to that. He's like, no, I had one deer. Granted, that deer was never recovered or accounted for, but if it truly was 7+ miles away, then
no effect.
How could you? I guess.
And on that same note, like first of all, there for sure are people that have done it purposely. There are definitely deer that have gotten out inadvertently too. Ohio's the best.
I know. It's like even if like, okay, Perfect World is a great database. You could go on Don's farm, take a DNA sample and test it. It's like, you might be able to do that on my farm and turn up like, oh yeah, I didn't know 6 miles away there was a fence, and 100%. 10 years ago one got out. Like,
it's by no coincidence that these giants are being killed in Ohio, and it's one of the more densely populated deer farming
How integrated
states.
Are some of these at one time high fence deer with the population? We don't know.
I would say in a state like Ohio, very
higher than others, I would say. But
Yep. Honestly, in a state like Pennsylvania at one point had over 800 deer farms. So yeah, in a state like Ohio, I would assume yes, and Pennsylvania probably.
Yeah, so that was a big one. That's a rumor that we hear, and I think we addressed that.
And we've heard that with other people. I mean, Bomar being one. Yeah. Of like, hey, I think Bomar's releasing does bred on his property. Okay.
Have we heard that?
I think I asked him that.
That's the thing with these rumors. I'm like, I think I've heard that. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I asked him straight up.
We're in Mean Girls, I'm like, I heard that they were this and that.
Well, because there's always someone out there, and I don't know, like, it's not naming. Someone out there will say, I know for a fact this is happening.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. Like, how do you know? And they'll be like, firsthand, I've seen it, or I've been there, or I delivered them, or whatever. And I'm like,
right.
Okay.
Right.
So the only thing we can do is ask straight up, and they're either blatantly lying to us, or that person who I saw it was really, a guy. No, it wasn't me personally, but a guy's sister. He and her. Yeah, and it's one of those that three or four people down has been twisted.
Right.
I don't know. I mean,
you can see on both sides. Like after hearing Don's side, you can see incentive from a business partner or somebody to spread rumors, about things that they saw because they're gray areas.
Yeah,
I would say, especially back then. And on the flip side, you can see incentive for Don to fence and breed higher deer. Like his business just depends on that.
Oops.
Right.
I just got out.
Right.
Especially with the way the
That's
property
what makes the
is set
situation
up.
so intriguing.
Yeah. So I mean, the only way you can do it is just like, did you do it? No.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so the other thing is like the fences. Like I know for sure some people will claim that there are fences that cannot be seen more than what he's saying. And that seems solvable. Like if we can go in shed season and walk it. And
obviously publicly.
That's the contingency.
He's offered me straight up, as long as it's not during deer season, do it.
That's the contingency, I think, on solidifying how we feel about this whole conversation. Obviously, I enjoyed the conversation.
And then people are going to be like, you guys are lying. Don's paying you.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. We'll have to figure out how to do that.
I'm just going to put a GoPro on my head.
Isn't it funny though? Because it's like, dude, there are areas like that. Like there's that one island they have on Discovery Channel where I was trying to find these treasures, and like,
I
don't know, Area 51 comes to mind, but all these areas where it's like people have been a million times, but somehow there's still like this mystery that like surrounds.
Well, there's there's no way he can be that. And I thought that was a good answer too. Is like he's like, well, clearly I'm not killing all these deer on this 120 acres,
right?
And I think people think that they're like, there's no way, like he's killing all these deer, 400.
Sure,
he's not doing it. He's serving 26 properties. That's a lot of ground. Like, no wonder the guy can get on big deer. There's a lot of ground he's covering there. Sure, one of those bucks usually is coming off. He just said it verbatim. He's like, I don't know if I'll have a shooter on the farm this year.
Which, frankly, is kind of surprising. Like, so, I mean, I guess, first of all, and we didn't ask this question necessarily, but what qualifies as a shooter? I assume he's waiting for 5, 6, 7, 8. He's
looking for a 170 plus. Because I think Mel was 4.
It's got to be way more than that. Mel was 4.
Yeah,
Mel was 4. That's one of the arguments that you hear in terms of the
age versus size guys, or
genetics is that every other deer he's ever killed has been 5+, and Mel would have for sure broken like the world or state record, and he killed it at 4. And the question is why.
I want to say that in the last podcast,
and also I don't think it was ever proven for a fact. I think he lost the teeth or something. I think the teeth.
Oh.
So I don't know if he was ever officially aged.
I want to say in the last podcast, he talked about like having a chance or eyes on the world record, didn't he? Didn't he say like he was monitoring or like had a chance at it or something? And like, I'm pretty sure he did, like the world record typical.
Okay.
And like, I don't know what happened. Like he just didn't get access to the property or something happened there. But yeah, I mean, beyond that, I mean, that's the same mindset of Adam Hayes, right?
I'm super curious now, though. If we get to go out and I mean, we're going to plan a shed hunting trip anyways to our place. If we can jet up there and run unrestricted.
I mean, I'm pretty sure after all that, like, I'm not even worried about like the unrestricted internals. It's like I want to walk the property line. Because that's where, if I see a fence, that's where I'm like, oh, there's one. Like the internal fences, I don't care at all. That's purely strategic to kill deer.
Right.
But the outside
you don't care about that.
No. Because that's not saving deer.
Right.
That's not
Would you do it on your place? Before you would do a perimeter fence?
Oh, I would never do a perimeter fence. Won't do it, ever. Sorry. Well, I'll sell the property before I perimeter fence.
Right. But you would do an interior fence.
Yeah, it's just that's a kill tactic.
Interesting.
Do you not see it that way, like differently?
Kind of.
Because like the perimeter fence is what is.
Yeah, again, you're like 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, the perimeter fence is what I believe is falsely enhancing the age structure. Like that's not naturally enhancing the age structure. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's why it's the one thing. That's the one.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's what. Yeah. But that's where I'm saying. Like at some point, if you fence 1, 2, 3 sides and like
interesting. See, I almost think I'm the other way. I think I would prefer
hunting them on
a small perimeter fence. Like, and I don't sound like the high fence guy here, but I'd prefer that over a manipulation tactic.
And that's where
because I just need them to get to age, and then I'm confident in my ability to kill them. Right. As are you. I think, but.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like a manipulation fence is no different than a food plot or a corn pile.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's just how you kill them.
It's different. Yeah, dude. If there's a physical barrier that literally allows them to.
Yeah, I get that.
It's another level.
I guess I'll stick on mine.
It is in that order. It would be fence pile or fence corn pile. Food plot or water hole or whatever.
One is very hunting strategy. Killable. The other is like management age structure.
Look, the Corn Cove, we just dropped a bunch of trees and closed off a thing. Effectively,
I've got no beef with that.
It works the same as a fence.
That's a kill. That's a kill structure.
Yeah,
right? That's not saving those deer.
No. It's just pushing them where we want them.
Which I don't give a shit if you do that.
But we would feel different.
It is weird if you put like a 200 yarder and like then they come in front of like I don't know.
We would feel different. Yeah, we're like, well, we did it naturally, so we feel okay about it. But you could put a fence there and it would have the exact same effect.
Agree.
And we would be like, that's weird.
Yeah, I would. Yes.
Which is an intriguing scenario.
But the perimeter one is the one where it's like those because that internal fence doesn't necessarily prevent your neighbor from killing that deer.
It's purely situational, I think. But generally, yes, I would agree.
the perimeter fence absolutely affects their ability at killing and seeing that deer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I dictate them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point of it. That's the whole point.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah.
So anyways, I thought it was a really cool discussion. I hope everybody listening, we're going to get, the comment feed will be hot and heavy. But I hope people at least appreciate that Don was pretty open with us, I think. Very transparent about it. I thought we covered some detailed things. You guys know from us listening that there are definitely things we agree and disagree on that were discussed there. But per our kind of little blip there of like, you know, him and the Eberhards is like, our goal on this podcast is to have a very open platform that the guest doesn't feel persuaded to go one direction or another. We just want them to be very honest and open with us and say what's on their mind. And I thought that was a really good example of it.
I thought he handled it extremely well, too. The fact that he reached out to us and wanted to have a conversation here.
Yep.
Because we've had guests in the past not do that. They've gone and done it on their own thing, and fine, you know.
Yeah, good luck.
But it's like it's an irrelevant conversation over there, you know, because it's happening here, you know. And
yeah, congratulations. I thought you handled this well.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh.
I thought you handled the podcast well.
Or him.
Well, him, but I thought you.
Oh, and me as well. Yeah, you as well, sir.
You did.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. Tip of that. Very nice.
Yeah. I just thought we didn't guide him. We let him openly flow very well, and if we needed to dig deeper, we did. So kudos.
Good on us. All right.
Tip of that. Yeah. Anyways, we appreciate everyone listening to this episode of HUNTR Podcast with Don Higgins, and we're in it now, and we will see you on the next one.
Later.
Take me